Good morning, everyone. We will call this meeting to order at 9:03. And Amanda, please take the roll.
Director Sani? Here. Director Leppel? Here. Director Sabo?
There.
Director Mel?
Here.
Chair Crucia?
Thank you. Carl, would you lead us in the pledge?
Would be honored. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would any member of the board like to make any announcements or communication at this time? Seeing none. Do we have any members of the public present?
Yes.
Very good. So at this time, we would be happy to take public comment on any item that is not on the agenda. Please raise your hand. Thank you. Moving on. At this point, we'll move to the consent agenda. All information from the consent agenda is in your packet. And is there any item on the consent agenda that any board member would like to remove?
Mr. Chair, I move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Amanda, roll call vote.
Director Sani?
Yes.
Director Leppel?
Yes.
Director Sabo?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Chair Crucia?
Yes. Thank you. So at this time, we'll move into item G, regular agenda action items. And number one is Board of Director stipends. Executive Director, you want to?
I know what I have on my. We did that last time.
Was that last month's agenda?
Yeah, we did that last month.
Thank you. Wow. Item one, presentation for unruly passengers.
Correct. This is at the request of Director Sabo. Commander Chris Borquin from Del Rey Oaks Police Department is in the box to tell you about how his group handles unruly passengers at the airport, both on aircraft and in the terminal building. So, Chris, are you ready?
I am. I want to thank the board for this opportunity. I've met with some of you at points, and I haven't met others, but I hope to meet all of you sometime soon. My name is Chris Borquin. I'm a police officer with the city of Del Rey Oaks. I've been there 26 years, and I've been a part of this airport thing that we have going on for about 3 years now. It'll be 3 years in October. I want to talk briefly about unruly passengers. I'm going to outline a few things. First of all, will be jurisdictional hurdles that we could have dealing with these unruly passengers. The process for removing passengers from planes, de-escalation tactics, and voluntary compliance, which is what we always want. The optics of a successful versus an unsuccessful event. And then what happens once we've removed this person from the plane? You know, are they arrested? Do they receive a citation? Does something else happen? So if we can start with the jurisdictional hurdles, identifying the jurisdiction that whatever may have taken place this can be difficult. As long as it is in California airspace, we really don't have that much of an issue. It doesn't mean that we won't investigate when the plane lands about what this unruly passenger has done. We may have to forward it. It just depends which authority, which agency would have charging authority in this case. Federal versus state law. California, to my knowledge, I've looked, it doesn't have anything regarding interference with a flight crew. However, the penal code in California has lots at our disposal and things that can closely mirror without exactly mirroring what the federal law would say. And again, just because we don't have jurisdiction over what may have happened does not mean that we will not investigate and forward our findings. And lastly, our federal partners at the FBI, they're always very helpful. They're mostly involved with more high profile things. Hopefully we don't have any reason to call them to our airport for an unruly passenger, but they are at our disposal. So the removal process, I want to spend a little bit more time on that. Super important. We've all seen the videos that go up on YouTube once in a while about somebody being drug off a plane. We do not want that. It's not good for the district. It's not good for the department. So in terms of, I'll leave it, I'm going to discuss a passenger that is being removed per the captain's orders rather than a criminal event. They would be closely related, not exactly related in terms of how we would process that. First of all, we would contact the captain. He would be the person, the captain of the plane, that would make the decision on whether this passenger was going to be removed from the plane or not. This is if it wasn't a criminal event. We would always seek voluntary compliance. It's very important to give people a chance to do the right thing. Everybody has cell phones nowadays. We have body cameras. This incident will be reviewed. It will be looked at by more than just the police department, more than just the district. It's important that we act professional and get to a good result for everybody on board. So if the passenger refuses to leave, we will use de-escalation strategies to try to gain the compliance. If it does not work, we've tried everything that we can, we will ask the passengers to deplane. We will have the airline help us out with that. And we will remove all the passengers if necessary. It's safer for us, it's safer for them. Once that has happened, we will still use de-escalation techniques to try to get the person to leave the plane. It can be helpful when they see other people leaving. They may leave on their own at that time. If they still refuse to leave, we're going to have, at the direction of the captain, give the passenger a trespass warning and let them know what will happen if they don't leave. At that point, the ball really is in their court. They need to make a good decision at that point. They either will or they won't. If they don't, we will arrest them and we will remove them from the plane. Again, this whole thing will be captured on our body-worn cameras. So a successful versus an unsuccessful event. The district has a high level expectation of the service of their police department, as well as our city. The business holders for the district, the stakeholders, the visitors, and the employees all have these expectations of our department. We strive to meet these expectations through our dedication, service, and accountability. These incidences not only can become local news, but national news and, dare I say, international news. It is important that we act in a manner that's professional and we get an end result which is best for the district, the police department, and the person that is making bad decisions as well. Our last thing we'll talk about is the charging and the handling of passengers. These will be passengers maybe involved in criminal behavior. So our department has a cite and release policy. It's within our lexical policy manual, which is available on the Delray Oak City website. In general, people that are arrested for misdemeanors will be released on a citation. There are exceptions, but that would be the norm, let's call it. And when I say released on a citation, they could be released at the airport, at the scene on the citation. They could be physically arrested and taken to our department, booked and released from there, but they wouldn't go to county jail and be held for bail on a misdemeanor charge. Felony charges are different. They would likely, we're in an era of COVID now, so it's pretty hard to book anybody at the jail at this point, but they would likely be booked at the jail for a felony event. Under certain circumstances where we're, let's say, unable to determine jurisdiction or follow-up needs to be done, or we're unsure whether there is a means to prosecute somebody, we would still take a report and we would forward it to our district attorney's office. We would release them from the scene without charges. So that's a brief discussion. I can't cover everything, and I know your time is valuable, and so I'm happy to answer any questions if I missed something or I didn't cover something that you're interested in hearing about.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the presentation. Before we come to the board, is there any member of the public that has a comment to make on this? Seeing none, we'll go to the board. We'll start with Director Miller.
Thank you, Chris, for the presentation. Just a couple quick questions. You mentioned Lexico. Maybe you want to explain to the board what that is, or how about your policy manual.
Yeah, very good. So Lexipol, we've been with Lexipol for about 4 years now, 3 or 4 years. It is a policy manual managed by Lexipol. It's a corporation that does this for a living, and they go about constantly updating with best practice new laws. It's hard for a small department, it's hard for a large department to keep up with the changes. So there's our self-assurance authority provides us with Lexipol as a part of our being a member of MPAD. It's available to all the officers 24 hours a day. We have daily training bulletins that they're required to do in order to stay up on policy. I would say that it's likely that we get a policy update at least once a month. So that's how on top of things they are. They're used by most of Monterey County, and dare I say, probably at this point, most of California at least.
Very good. Maybe can you talk a little bit about the specialized training that you get for operating a police department at the airport? I believe that's in LAX you're going to.
Yeah, that's correct. We have the specialized training at LAX. It's required within 1 year of hire. It's a week-long. LAX is a city unto itself. It's an enormous department. They have a lot of resources there. We go through a myriad of different, I would say, course aims during the week on everything from unruly passengers to large events such as airline accidents, the whole gambit of things. It's a well put on class, well respected. They stopped doing it for a little while during COVID. Most of our officers, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3, have attended, and they plan to attend. We'll get them there when they start holding these courses again.
Very good. And finally, have we had any incidents of unruly passengers? I know we've had some intoxicated people in the bars, maybe some in the waiting room. Have we actually, has your department had to go onto an airplane to remove anybody at this airport?
No, not so far. We have been involved in an unruly passenger incident where we backed up the former airport police. We have not gone onto an airplane ourselves yet. We have had people denied boarding. We've had, it's rarely not related to alcohol or mental health issues. Those are the two, without those, we probably wouldn't have any issues. So the alcohol consumption is a big deal. It really is. You know, when I came to the airport, small tangent. You know, in cities, our city is a little bit different, but in a lot of cities, people don't want to be involved, right? They don't want to stick their nose where it doesn't belong. Then I came to the airport, and everybody wants to stick their nose where it does belong, because we're all tasked with this responsibility to keep the airport safe. So all the employees, everybody's pointing out things. It's wonderful, and that's the same kind of action it's going to take to prevent these folks. We can't do anything about the people that arrive, but we certainly can do a lot about people, letting people on the plane at MRY going somewhere else that could cause a problem. So we're all responsible for that. We get calls often, and although the gate agent is, unless the person meets criteria for being drunk in public or something else, they will make the determination whether this person flies or not. But in my own opinion, they do a very good job.
Okay, thank you very much. Director Summer?
Thank you for the presentation. I know that Director Sabo is one that asked for this, and I'm wondering, for myself personally, I'm just curious to, I know recently that they has increased the fines for not wearing face masks on the planes, and obviously we've seen a lot in the press nationally about that. And I'm just wondering how, if what I heard from you, I believe, and what I understand is that there isn't much interplay with your police department and what would happen on an airplane. But could you clarify that a little bit more?
Yeah. So let me try to narrow down your question to make sure that I understand. So you would be talking about whether we wouldn't get involved if somebody were on the airplane and they didn't want to wear their mask, and that we would, is that where the question is leading, or?
That is where the question is leading. Yes.
Right. We would not go on to tell them to put their mask on. If they don't want to wear a mask, then they don't have to fly. They can take a bus or they can drive. So we will go on if they don't want him or her on their airplane any longer. That's our stance with it. We do find people walking around the airport without our mask, and we will talk to them. It's going to be this way for quite some time to come. I mean, it's already been extended through the end of the year. I don't know when the mask mandate within the airport will stop, but it's going to be a while. And so we're vigilant on it. We do have folks seek us out when they know somebody is not wearing a mask. And if we see somebody walking by, we'll talk to them, we'll educate them. But in terms of going on a plane and making somebody wear a mask, they've done everything if the folks operating the airplane can't get them to wear a mask, we're happy to help them off the airplane.
That's for them, I understand. And that's obviously what we're seeing some of in just the national press. So I just wanted to clarify that. And thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
Director Lovell?
Thank you, Chris. I was here, been here twice prior to your contract where people were asked to leave a plane. And I was amazed both times at how well it's handled by the actual officer or officers who were involved. And funny one was the guy that was going to Australia, and he couldn't even put one foot in front of another when he got out of the cab. And our policemen actually worked with him really well, and they got him a hotel. They moved his flight, the gate agent, to the next day, and got him a hotel room. He came back the next day and wrote us all a thank you note that obviously he was not in any condition to travel. So, you know, I think it handled well, and I watch you all in the term, and I think you do a really good job of making a friendly atmosphere and educating people, and I'm grateful for that. I did watch a future transportation policy yesterday that Wall Street Journal put on. And they had Scott Kirby, who's the CEO of United. And he talked about the fact that what they kind of see coming is going to be a vaccine mandate. And that will make it really interesting for all of us of the new equipment we have to have and the things that we're all going to need. And will probably make some people a little irritated when they come to check in. But I think overall, it sounds like you'll have a good handle on it, and I'm appreciative. And everything I've seen here, we've not had anyone who left here angry because of their interaction with the police department. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Director Sabo.
Thank you. And thank you, Chris, for our presentation. What is your current status with the Del Rey Oaks department? What's your rank and what's your position? You like to achieve or what like to do?
So I'm back to commander. Our chief Hoyne, he was acting city manager for about 8 months, and he's back to chiefdom, which is great. So my job, as it were, I'm a patrol commander. I have other shoes that I wear. I am intimately involved with the operations side, though, not just because it's important, but I like the people over there. I like them a lot. I like working with Ken.
Is your part of your command staff then? Or
I'm sorry?
Is that right? Are you part of the command hierarchy at the department?
Correct. I'm a commander with the department.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the presentation. And I just want to say my observations of the patrol officers that frequent the airport and carry out our obligations at the airport. It's been exemplary, you know, and they responded quickly as best I can determine, and so my compliments. What engendered this request from me was a letter from the Department of Transportation, or the FAA, where they were concerned about the extent to which their ability under the law is only to kind of enforce, provide civil remedies, like civil penalties against people that interfere with a crew member or something like that. And I think they were kind of suggesting that they're soliciting participation in the airports in rather severe cases where there's interference with a crew member of the airport, passing on any potential charges onto the local district attorney rather than just kind of throwing it under the carpet. And so that's what engendered it, you know. So and my understanding is that there's kind of a jurisdictional issue here. That is, when your patrol officers are in the terminal here and face masks summed up or behavior comes up, you have the same kind of authority you would have in the city of Del Rey Oaks or anywhere else. When we talk about incidents that happen on an airplane, another jurisdiction, correct me if I'm wrong here, Carl, Scott, but it's the crew members and the captain and the crew members who have kind of jurisdiction to enforce, one, federal laws, and number two, their company policies. And if the company policy is to wear a mask, then the captain or the crew members can ask to have the person removed from the airplane and something happens to them when they get off the airplane, particularly if they interfere with the crew member, which I understand is against federal law. That was what engendered my request, because I think we have a role, and it's just my opinion, I think we have a role as an airport district here at an airport to establish what the policy is for once you remove that person from the airplane, what do we do? And I think that's whether they're charged, whether it's passed on to the district attorney and all that. That's where I'm trying to go with
some education from you. And I don't know how this is done, whether your city council establishes policy for the police department, but we're maybe in the policy mode here. Maybe we need to help you, assist you in what do you do when you remove somebody from an airplane at the request of the crew when they interfere with the crew member. And having been a former crew member, I take that very seriously. And when they come off the airplane, I don't want to have them get a little pat on the back and say, "Don't do it again." That's my personal preference. Can you speak to that when we are violating either federal law or we have a request from the crew to say we want this person arrested or taken into custody because they interfered with the crew member? What is your understanding?
Yeah, so much of our discretion in terms of what we can do with these folks is directed by or dictated by state law. Our goal, because I think it's very serious as well, if we can, and we have a victim willing to prosecute, we will take them to jail. We will arrest them, okay? We have zero issue doing that. And I agree with you that it's a difficult situation and that we are dealing with these large machines that leave an inter-jurisdiction so quickly. It would be a lot easier if we had something in California that we could use directly related to that. I don't foresee that happening. But again, we can use the penal code to mirror the behavior of this passenger. So that's not an issue. We can also forward it to both the district attorney's office and to the district court in San Jose. We can do that as well. They can prosecute on both ends. But you have our support in people that do cross the line, scare people when they're flying, and that need, some people need to go to jail. You know, if we can do it, not to be mean, but if we can do it, then we will.
Let me ask you, the benefit of my fellow board members here, but the extent to which they violated federal law on interference with a crew member on the airplane, that's federal law. It isn't state of California. It doesn't matter where it was. That's federal law. Now, are you empowered then to take the requests from the crew members about having them taken off the airplane and then doing something with them in a violation of federal law versus state of California?
We can't arrest under federal law. In the FBI, again, they're a great resource and they're our partners. So depending on the severity, they either will or will not come. We will, of course, assist with them, whatever they need. But it is, that's why we have to mirror with the penal code rather than actually charging a federal statute. It's unfortunate, but you don't miss that much because the behavior is the behavior. Whether it's in a plane or on the ground, if it's illegal in a plane over California, it's illegal on the ground in California.
So let me just a minute. So there's an interplay between state and federal law. And I'm gonna use just some general examples. If general unruly behavior, interfering with a flight crew, violation of federal laws, typically those are enforced by the airline in conjunction with the FBI. In some instances, the crew can be directed, usually they'll coordinate with the airline, with management. They can be directed, they can tell the crew, please file a police report regarding this incident. The airline can then get that police report and then take it to the feds and do some enforcement by the feds based on the report that is taken by the local police. Having said that, that's usually not what happens. Usually what happens is with unruly passengers, and again, as the commander mentioned, it's usually either mental issues, alcohol, or some combination of the two. Usually what will happen is some assault or battery will happen. Those are state law violations. So in that instance, you will have a flight member who will say, here's what happened, local police, please arrest them, charge them under state laws. There may also be a federal component on the back end.
Okay.
But usually what the airlines will do is they'll just say, okay, that passenger is banned from our airline. You can't buy a ticket. And for them, that sort of closes the books. It's the interference with a flight crew that's not a state law violation, where they will usually say, let's take a report. And usually the report is done just by the airlines themselves. Seldom do they involve local police, but they can. So it's not that much of an anomaly. It can happen. But usually they'll do their own internal report and they'll forward that to the FBI. The FBI will then decide what to do in conjunction with the airlines. But the airlines, their number one go-to is they will just ban that person from flying on their airlines. And they'll say, we're done with it. That's it. They don't care.
That's up to the airline.
That's up to the airlines.
But when, and I guess the question, the critical question here for me is, and then I'll shut up. When the crew members, captain, senior flight attendant, whoever says, this man accosted one of our passengers or accosted me, and we want that they were interfering with a crew member, they deliver them over to the police, because they call the head and all that. What then happens? Do we have and does the crew member have to say we want them charged, or do we just hand them into the custody of the police for the police to do whatever they think is appropriate at that point? And that's where the airport policy gets into play.
Yeah, the airport policy actually doesn't really get into play. What usually will happen is there will be a conversation among the responding police officers and the individual who's making the complaint themselves. What do you want to do here? Do you want, because again, the police officers didn't witness, unless they get video or some documented evidence, the police officers are going off of what was said. So typically they'll interview some people and they'll say, okay, let's make a decision. What do you want to do? The flight attendant or the captain of the plane can then make a request. Let's go ahead and have them arrested, have them removed from the flight. There's a conversation that happens on the spot, depending on the severity of the incident. What would you like to have happen here? Although I'll let the commander, I think, answer more fully, but correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what goes on is there's a discussion on the spot. What do you want to have happen here?
Absolutely. Any misdemeanor charge, with few exceptions, requires us to witness it. It requires to happen in our presence, and if not, we need somebody willing to prosecute. We need somebody willing to stand up and say that I was a victim of this incident. So we seek those people out in incidents like these. Sometimes we're successful, and they want to. I shouldn't say successful. Sometimes they want to press charges and sometimes they don't. I've never had the occasion yet where an airline passenger or crew complained of a battery during flight, and we had one of these conversations, but that would be the conversation. We would need to establish that first, because without a victim, you don't have a crime, theoretically.
Okay, I gotta get that. And, I was headed towards guidance that we as an airport district might be able to provide to you to make your job easier, or to facilitate whatever the FAA wanted to happen in terms of criminal prosecution purposes. Because for me, interference with a crew member is a very serious offense, and that's, in my opinion, there's one single word on that. That's something that should be referred to the district attorney.
Well, interfering with a crew member can't be referred to the district attorney because it's a federal crime, not a state crime. The DA cannot charge federal crimes.
Okay, but it has to raise to the level of the FBI at some point. Somebody has to tell the FBI. And is it, are we silent as the airport, or do we rely on the airlines to do that?
It is the airline's call to do that.
All right, thank you. I appreciate your presentation, Chris.
Thank you, sir.
Director Millio, a follow-up?
Yeah, just real quickly to respond to a couple things Director Sabo said. I know in real egregious cases, the pilot in control, the captain will usually make the call to emergency land. Police will be told ahead of time. The passengers then taken off the plane, and usually it gives time for the FBI or somebody to be present as well as uniformed police. But as far as us giving direction, that's why I asked about Lexipol. Bill, I don't think we should get involved in policy. This is a firm of lawyers that specialize in keeping cities and counties out of legal trouble. And if we were to stick our hand into it and get involved, I don't think it would work. And Lexipol, the commander is correct. They have about 300 plus clients, different cities and counties. Some of them that operate their own airports. So,
Okay, well, that's good, guys. I don't know. That's why I solicited your thoughts on the matter. This is, to me, it's a very serious thing, and I don't know where things stand in that regard. But thank you, Chris.
So, Commander, I do, between you and Scott, I want to end this on with really good clarity as to what authority, if any, this district has to create a policy involving this activity that takes place on an airline. I'm understanding that we do not have that authority and should not seek it. Is that accurate?
I would agree with that.
Commander, would you agree with that?
I would agree with that as well. Lots of bodies like yours do have expectation statements that they can do, but rather than a policy itself. But I'm sure everybody on the board has an expectation about how we would handle things, and you support certain things and don't support other things. And that may be appropriate, but that would be up to the board. But in terms of policy, I don't think so.
I just want to get clarity on this as well. If your department were to charge an airport client on a local or state crime, is not the final decision on whether to prosecute that, is that not up to the district attorney?
That's correct. We submit for review, we make a recommendation, but it is up to the district attorney. They are the filing agency. So we do our best to put together a good case, give them a little wiggle room and make their decision easy, but it is their decision.
Commander, we really appreciate you taking your time today and giving us this presentation. It's been well worthwhile and we appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next item now that I know I have the correct agenda.
Where did you get the other?
Marketing plan. Mr. Chidlaw, would you like to come forward? Executive Director, do you have any intro on this?
Only that this is phase 2 of board request for marketing plan. This is the written marketing plan that Chris will cover with you. It dovetails with the presentation that he did regarding the actual marketing efforts that we've accomplished. And Chris will walk you through that and we'll be open to questions.
Thank you. So one thing before you start, Chris, I would ask that this is a little different than I normally do, but on this particular topic, I would ask that the board members, during this presentation, if something triggers during the presentation and you'd like to ask a question at that time, that would be fine. So with that, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and board members. Always nice to see you. So we, per our discussion a couple of months ago, we hopefully tightened up and answered some more questions that you guys had. It's actually been a good process to go through this, you know, to really see what we're doing and reevaluate what we're doing. And to be honest with you, I'm very proud of what we're doing. I think we've done a lot of good things in this last couple of months, going back in and putting it on paper. We all know sometimes when you put it on paper, it reinforces what you're doing. And I'm very pleased with the work that we've been doing. Our objective for the marketing, as you have, is there with you, is to reach and influence as many Monterey, Santa Cruz, and San Benito County residents who plan on traveling to start their journey at the Monterey Regional Airport. We cannot think, Michael and myself and others, how to judge this plan other than in plainness. It's just one of those things, whether I'm working with my car dealers, you know, how many cars are you selling, or how is business? It's very tough as a marketer to answer that question. So what we have to rely on is the word getting out there, and are we getting butts in seats, as Michael likes to say. Our target goals will be simple. The brand new airport is easy and convenient way to fly. We've talked about that numerous times, and that will continue to be our emphasis. 90% plus employment, shrink the number of people who fly from San Jose and other Bay Area airports, and top of mind awareness of this airport. That is critical. You have to stay the Peninsula, and people, they need to know about this airport on a continual basis. There is competition, as we all know, 50 miles up the street. When they go to Expedia or they go somewhere else, they need to be thinking of this airport, and that is what we're desperately trying to do. How do you achieve these goals? Well, one of the big ways we've achieved this goal is more flights coming out of Monterey. That is huge. I mean, we all know that. I really don't need to say that. The more flights out of this airport, the more top of mind awareness, and the more people will know. And you know, it begs the question, when you get a new flight to Seattle or Portland, and people are buying tickets without a little word of mouth in the airport and everything, how do they know to do that? What are we doing that they know to buy tickets to fly Seattle or Dallas or Phoenix? And I think that's very important. We will do that through effective traditional social media and of course our public relations and community outreach. We talked about this before, and I'm not going to go through this whole presentation. And again, as Chairman Curcio said, if you have any questions, please. But our budget's anywhere between $10,000 and $15,000 a month. I would take any budget. I used to work for the Golden Tee, and believe me, her budget was not $10,000 to $15,000 a month, but it was close. So $10,000 to $15,000 a month is good, but it's not McDonald's. It's not NorCal Honda. It's not Toyota. We have to be very, very careful and precise in what we do with that money. We cannot buy everything. We cannot do everything. It is very important when we spend every dollar. Important. I talked about television last time and why we use television. Our target demographic, to some of you, at least especially, want more goals and more concrete plans. Our target demographic is 18 to 64-year-old adults. It's about 60% of this market. Our secondary demo will be 35 to 64-year-old with disposable income, because that's what this airport is. That demographic is disposable income. We talked about TV and branding, how Apple, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, AT&T, Gavin Newsom, they all use TV to make sure they sell things and keep their job. That is the power of television. We talked about, but I'm going to go over it again. Obviously, again, we're looking for Monterey County, Santa Cruz County, and San Benito County. The area of dominant influence of the television stations, which they're metered in every market. That's what the federal communication does. There's a market. There's the Bay Area. There's Monterey, Santa Cruz. It is the exact same for us in TV. It is Monterey, Santa Cruz, and San Benito County. The two mirror each other exactly perfect for our purposes. And of course, Monterey is the number one. I talked about branding the airport last time, how Michael brought around community leaders from hospitality, from ag, from education, from military, all came together to begin the process of how we can improve the airport, how we can get more flights in and out of this airport. We talked about the Fly Monterey, the Michael also put together with all the different leaders. So again, who are we targeting? Who is this airport? Who, when we do our marketing, who are we targeting? We are targeting Monterey County. The latest population number for Monterey County, the census is 435,000 people. That is who we are going after. We purchase airtime, TV, radio, by print and ads to reach Monterey County as our primary one of 435,000 residents. Of course, Monterey County's #1 city in Monterey County is Salinas. So when I talk about Monterey County, the emphasis is on Salinas and the South County down there, as well as the Peninsula. They all come together when we do this. Secondary will be Santa Cruz with 270,000 residents, and San Benito County with around 65,000. As it says here again, our target demographics is adults 18 to 64. So, in summary, when we talk about who are we trying to talk to, 18 to 64-year-olds living in Monterey County is our #1 target audience. That is who we're trying to reach. Now, how do we do that? Again, television, I won't go through it again, and if you have any questions about that, please let me know. You have this one page here, you know, in the presentation. This came from KION, and just again to reinforce, if you look, this is the television coverage area. It is exactly the same coverage area that we're trying to achieve. It's Monterey, Salinas, and Santa Cruz with a little bit of San Benito. Top commercials that you have been in, also, I need to point this out. We'll have a cost per thousand. That cost per thousand, you get rating points from the television stations, and every show is measured by Nielsen. You know how many thousands of people are watching this show. Okay, so a common in the industry is to have between $50 and $100 cost per thousand. So that simply means that to reach 1,000 people, we're going to spend $50. So $50 out of your pocket in the TV or radio, we're reaching 1,000 people is our goal, which is a very, very good goal. We do that again by being metered, by Nielsen. I don't know if you ever had a Nielsen rating come to your house or anything. It's kind of it's interesting, you know, the technology is picking up, and now they do, you don't fill out a little diary. I used to work at K on the radio, and some kid would fill out the diary with the radio. But that is how all of these shows, or that's how you get the facts. That's how we look and we see what KSPW is doing, or what the Super Bowl is doing, or anything else. And our goal is $50 to reach 1,000 people. Top-rated shows where you guys have been, we talked about this beforehand, Super Bowl, the Oscars, 49er football, Raider football, 60 Minutes, golf, it goes on and on. And again, we only buy those shows if we know that our cost per thousand is going to be effective for the airport. It is not just, let's go buy that. It's, let's make sure what we're doing fits the goals and aspirations of the airport. KSPW News. We buy a lot of KSPW News because in television, there's two things that still rate. Local news and sports, because people are not, nobody goes and record that. It's live. They watch it or they just don't. So that's why we go there. KSPW is #1 at 6 a.m., they're #1 at 7 a.m., they're #1 at noon, they're #1 at 5, they're #1 at 6, and they're #1 at 11. That is why we like KSPW. I also put in here a September schedule for you, just so you can see exactly what we do. We buy weekly news from 7, 8, and 9, 8. It does a tremendous rating. It is very inexpensive to do. We buy their morning news. In the month of September, coming up is a Ryder Cup golf. For the Peninsula, there's nothing better than Ryder Cup golf. It will have a huge rating, and we get it very cost efficient. We bought the 49ers. I don't know if you guys saw a commercial of Detroit last week. We'll also be in the Eagles. Now, for our Hispanic friends over in Salinas, there is no bigger audience that I talked to you about before than now the Las Vegas Raiders. The Hispanic culture loves the Las Vegas Raiders. When they were in the playoffs 3 or 4 years ago, Salinas, it was a party. So we think about all this kind of stuff. How do we reach that South County corridor of Hispanics? We do it with Raiders, News, and also the Giants. Of course, we're in Giants, the playoff round. San Francisco Giants. And we'll look for the Giants first. So that schedule that I put together, it will reach over 115,000 adults in our demographic in September. So 115,000 people in just the month of September, 18 to 64 years old, will see our television schedule there. Currently what we're marketing, we need to make a little change with the Portland change, but we're promoting all right now. It's a very generic spot that you guys have seen. It talks about the easy convenience and marketing all the different destinations that we service right now. I talked about radio. We do use radio every once in a while. I wrote down the different radio stations that we use. We use them for the Peninsula and also for Salinas. We talked about KRML, what a special relationship we have with them, and how much free stuff. We got quotations for you because we do buy them. But it's more than just buying time because promotions, Seattle Portland promotions are awesome. I mean, that's anytime we can get some of that, it's just what we need to do. Print, we buy print. Now we talked about branding. Print is not the best way to brand. That's why you don't see these big companies buying print. You have to buy so much over and over. And to buy a half-page ad in the weekly is $1,000. They are not going to give us the same cost per thousand and reach as many people as us buying television for $1,000. That's why we can't. But there's times that we do. We want to talk to the ad community, so we buy the Farnborough magazine. In fact, that's coming up in the fall. We do buy the weekly at times. We buy the Herald during special events. When people are in town, like for the AT&T or for Car Week, it makes sense to be in the Herald. In the Pineville, we buy two, because I have a very good friend, I mentioned this before, or I did, who's a landscape contractor, and every other client he has in Pebble Beach is from Texas. Texas oil, Texas oil, Texas oil. So we buy the pine cone to promote Dallas and Phoenix. That makes sense to reach the Texas residents. They all love their little pine cone. Social media, Mike added this with Amanda. That if you have any questions on that, we're more than willing to have to discuss that. Community outreach. I mean, what you guys do as board members is incredible. What Michael does is incredible. We are out there. We are out there in that community. I think sometimes we don't recognize as much as we are. I mean, we form a relationship with Monterey County Visitors. We can do more with the Visitors Bureau, the Monterey County Farm Bureau, the Monterey County Shippers and Growers, the Monterey County Hospitality Association, the Monterey Chamber of Commerce, the Salinas Valley Chamber of Commerce, Carmel Chamber of Commerce, the City of Carmel, Pebble Beach Company, Big Sur International Marathon, Monterey Jazz Festival, the Rodeo Salinas. You just had a mixer here a couple of weeks ago. Local Rotary clubs, civic organizations, military educational, and Mike and I have begun discussions on how we can do more with the military and educational leaders. And working with Director Sabo, we are going to look at the Salinas Valley. We are going to look at the Salinas. No, because those are good. That's good. Hold on, serious. Because those are things that we should be involved with as well. And the other thing is our Alaska airline friend, what's his name?
Franco Finn.
Franco.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
Sure. Found out last evening that with Chris's help, we've introduced Franco and Alaska Airlines to the Monterey Foundation, to Steve Johns.
What is Franco?
Franco works for Alaska Airlines. He is the regional director of marketing. He is the guy that puts together all the promotionals. He's done great work with us with KRML in Seattle. They now have a promotional that they're doing on their own with KRML. We're not involved. That targets Cabo San Lucas and a music festival that's going on down there in, I believe it's February. And all of that inures to us. It's traffic that we're generating or attempting to generate through this airport. Franco is now the guest of Steve John and he will be playing in the Pro-Am for the Pure Golf Championship, which is next week. So a week from today, he'll be on Pebble Beach with all of the key people in the community and in the region and in the business community throughout that play in the Pro-Am for that event. Frank, and we introduced them in order to gain that kind of relationship. We're not involved in that, but we played matchmaker. if
You were
you
the
will.
conduit.
Thank you. Thank you. Well said. Yeah, so those are the kinds of things that you don't see in Chris's presentation, but these are the kinds of things that Chris and I work on continuously to get that added benefit of what we do.
And in our meeting with him, I was very quiet, in a public scene, because he's the PA announcer for the Golden State Warriors, and he's very loud. Yeah. Also, we just had a meeting last week with the new soccer team in town.
Yep.
The union, the Monterey Bay Union, we are in contact with them right now, what kind of sponsorship, they're very interested in working with us. Of course, we'd love to be their official airline, those are details to be worked out. To be honest with you, their sponsorships are not cheap. They're riding a pretty good wave in the community right now with sport and everything, but again, soccer is huge with the Hispanic population. So we're looking to see how we can grow our relationship with them. Michael and I have been meeting later today to get those presentations. They could not have been nicer people. They have a vision, and they're very impressive, but again, they're a little expensive.
Did you say you'll be meeting later today?
Yeah, with Michael.
Don't come on.
Wow.
Mr. Chairman, we need to be done by 3.
I see. I thought you meant, hey.
No.
We're also Pebble Beach Food and Wine. Of course, we want to, so again, believe me, we took to heart what you guys are saying to us. We want to continue to grow and do more, and that's what we're looking to do. PR efforts, we talked about that. We want to continue to grow that. And we will do everything we can in that direction. We deliver more buzz PR, something to Marcy, and also on a national level to get the word out as well. In the last airlines, people and other people are trying to help us.
Who's Marcy?
Marcy is a PR agency.
Marcy
We've got a lot of
Brocco.
contacts.
We'll either,
We have a contract or relationship with them.
Chris does.
You do. With Marcy personally.
No, sir. Yes, I do, but she's a friend of mine. I do a lot of visits with her reciprocal.
I get that thing.
And but she just has, she has the list, you know, when you want to send something out and a contact. So PR is not my strength, very upfront about what my strengths are, but they're not. And so that's why I use Marcy for that kind of stuff.
she has access to PR Newswire, which gets press releases published nationally or available to publish nationally. So we'll use her in that regard as well. We have in the past, and it's had some success.
So I'm not, well, I don't put together a 40-page, $30,000 sales and marketing, you know, so I hope I've answered a lot of your questions here, but I know you have some, so I'll turn it over.
So before we go there, Michael, I think it's really important that you don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but I really think it's important enough that you give us an overview of where we are in social media and where we're going.
Okay, very, very good. Where we are right now is part of the budget. I asked for an additional position so I could bifurcate Amanda's current position. Currently, Amanda is providing administrative support to myself and to Chris Morello. In addition, she is supporting the board and she is working social media. We recognize that there's an important component. We're eyes are wide open now that social media is effective for us to use as a marketing tool. And I highlighted in the plan that 37% of all homes sold in Monterey and in the region are being sold to people that are of a younger demographic. They're moving from the Bay Area or other places, moving here for quality of life. They're bringing their families, they're working from home.
Would you repeat that again?
Sure.
37%
37%
of the
of
homes
home
that are sold are
sales.
sold to people moving from the Bay Area and they're young.
Correct.
What age?
The target age is 18 to 45. So it's the family age. You've got more families moving into the region now than we've seen since I've been here. I don't know if I can say forever.
Okay, so
But-
but 65% are out of that particular demographic.
I'm not sure I follow that one.
Well, 35% are in that demographic that you just
Correct.
identified.
Yeah.
65% are not.
Correct.
They're older or
And
younger. or
that-
whatever.
That is what traditional marketing targets is the
Okay.
older demographic. But social media is a newer demographic. It's a younger demographic. It's where people of a younger age get their news, get their, that's where they see what's going on in the world. That's where they communicate with each other. So we will be
I just wanted
using.
to understand.
Yeah,
what
okay.
you were saying about that.
Okay. So we recognize that there's a target market there that perhaps our overall traditional marketing effort doesn't reach as well as it could. Let me just say this because I'm not in that age group anymore. These kids don't watch
Right,
television
I'm on the
much.
chart.
Thank you, I appreciate that. They don't watch television a lot. When they watch it, they're watching something other than what we advertise on. So we need to find a way to communicate to them. That's where we're going to use social media. That's where we're going to be much more active. The platforms that we'll use are the traditional ones with a focus on right now Instagram, because that seems to be the one that most people use. We're moving away from Facebook because of the travails and concerns about Facebook at this point. But the beauty of social media is it's inexpensive and it's portable. If the population that uses social media migrates to Twitter, we can follow that. If they migrate back to Facebook, we can follow that. Everything we do on social media will support and will amplify Chris's work. So we'll be hitting on, and we have been hitting on, convenience, ease of travel, the environment here, the cleanliness, the safety. We hit a lot on our new services. So we will regularly talk about the new services, about Seattle, about Portland, about Denver. So we'll use social media as a tool to communicate to that growing new sector of our demographic population.
So I also think it's important for our other board members that are not on air service that you share with all of us one more time that Amanda will be receiving additional training and how that'll happen.
That is correct. Amanda is very good at social media, but I think there are places that we can go that I think we need to learn as we go. So there are places where Amanda will be sent for training or will take online training to learn more about how to better market this airport and the services that we offer here in the social media arena. Those could be anything from classes at Monterey Peninsula College to online courses to she actually at one point went to a couple of meetup groups of people that meetup is a social gathering kind of thing that were of people that market in social media, know how to market in social media. That didn't go very far. I don't know that it was entirely effective, but we're going to find those places where we can train her up better on how to use the intricacies of social media to our benefit.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Thank
You just said we could just break in.
you. Absolutely.
I see what you're
No, I was gonna go, actually, I'm gonna go to Director Son.
Mike, could you talk a little bit, you said you were moving away from Facebook. What are the reasons for that? Because my understanding is that each platform really has specific targeted markets and, age groups and things of that nature.
Yeah, our understanding is that Facebook right now has fallen on a little bit of hard times with certain demographics, principally because of their use of your data and the resale of your data. The interesting part of this is, while Facebook does that, Instagram is owned by Facebook, but they apparently don't use that platform in that way. So people have migrated more to Instagram. So follow that, and we'll follow them as they migrate over there. They use Instagram more. We're not gonna walk away from Facebook at all, but our emphasis will change, and that's what I mean by portability. If people migrate more toward Twitter, we'll follow them. If they migrate back to Facebook in large numbers, we'll increase our presence there.
My understanding, a lot of that is also just the demographics, the ages. I think there's a real sensitive group, age group. I don't even know the numbers, but 25 to 40 or that sort of thing that is concerned about the resale of information and things. Also, I know we do, because I'm on both, and so I do like the posts that I see and things of that nature, but we do similar postings on Instagram and Facebook. What percentage of the time, any idea? And are we creating different content? Or
no, principally the content is very much similar.
Okay, that's what it seems to be.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not having analyzed it.
Now, again, as we learn more about how to use those tools, as Amanda learns more about how to use those tools, she'll have the ability to target specific messages if that's appropriate to each platform.
And I think the targeting of the marketing, I mean, you can say, I want, PhDs with incomes of 200,000 or more. And I mean, it's incredible what you can do, and to try and massage that or figure out, where our client is ultimately and all of that. I understand there's definitely a need for really understanding the algorithms as well. So I'm glad to see social media being addressed. That was certainly one of my comments. I didn't think that there was a lot there. Do we have a specific budget for that at this point?
No, that's wrapped into the overall marketing budget. As I said, it's inexpensive.
Okay.
So it won't be a large number, but the trick will be how do you use that smaller number effectively, and that's what we'll work. That's what we'll work.
Okay. And Amanda's role is she's in a hybrid at this point, but we've also hired an administrative assistant.
We have not hired. I have a temporary that is being evaluated.
Okay.
And the plan, as was outlined in budget, was to bifurcate Amanda's role. So she can focus solely and completely on social media and marketing. And the new person will focus more heavily on administrative support.
So plans 3 to 6 months for that transition to something soon.
That's not unrealistic. Yeah.
That's what I have for social media.
Thank you, Level.
Thank you, Chris. Couple things. At the CSDA conference, I sat in on a session that was on advertising and PR. And I'd like to sit down with you and Amanda on that, because he had some amazing statistics and some things. But our area is typically, and still is, when you talk to the people who are doing it, we're still very strong Facebook users, partly because of our age of our population, particularly on the Peninsula and in people who have small children. They're using it still as connecting with school events. And so there are a couple that if we could get in the groups. One is the Carmel Valley group on Facebook. They are so active and they share things, and it's a way to get the word out there and to do it well. But I can't remember the guy's name. I meant to pull it this morning and bring the whole thing. But the gentleman discussed the fact that for the whole central of California, Facebook is still extremely strong, and it is getting out to more people. I was just saying to Gary, the nice thing about Facebook, that you will know, is that you can share it, whereas Instagram, you can't. When you see it, and then it's gone a lot of times. So it's good that Facebook, you can go ahead and share it out with a whole group of people. So I suspect that it's still a good place if we can get some good ads going. And I'm sorry that I'm not your target market, because
out of it too.
I probably fly as much,
Well, on a serious note on that, we're talking about 18 to 64 because we kind of know that 65, 90 with TV and everything, we're going to get there. You know, they're going to be watching. That's kind of comes with what we're doing. So that's why, you know, we want
I
to
would
get
just tell
together.
you, I got the Nielsen ratings several years ago,
Yeah.
and Andrew called me and said, what are you doing? You're not listening to me. You're distracted. And I said, I'm filling out the Nielsen ratings. And she said, what? You're gonna kill all my programs. Dad only watches baseball and hardball.
Big brother.
She said, do not do that. So, anyway, the one thing I was gonna say, Chris, because I'm on social media a lot, KION has a much better presence on any breaking news or anything that's going on than KSPW on Facebook. And I see how many people pile on when they put something, they're on it. So I don't know how we would get, like if you have to advertise on TV to get onto their social media, but it might be something that you all talk about because they're fast on things.
We can get digital ad them on the website and things like that.
And they covered Gilroy a lot in the Prudell area. So just FYI. Caltrans. Highway 17 and what is it, 80? Is that what it transitions to, or 880?
880.
Well,
880.
817
Yeah,
to 880. So that's got a 2 to 3 year, like, $1 zillion contract. And they're starting up at the Los Gatos exit on Lark. That's gonna be the first one they're working with. But all of that impacts anybody that's trying to go north to get on the plane. I would strongly advise us to pull the schedules, particularly for this winter, for both Highway 17 and 880 and 101, and see what the construction things are, and then hit advertising during that time. Because they're going to be missed lights, there's no doubt about it. And when you put rain on top of it, it really impacts how people's traffic patterns are. So I think that's something we should really look at, and may have to tweak your advertising schedules just a little bit, particularly the radio, because people are listening maybe to the radio in the car, and that might be something. Anyway, with Mike's permission, I'd love to sit down with Amanda, and there's also a guy in Prudell who is amazing with teaching about social media. And Paulette Lynch and I brought him in several years ago, and we worked with him, I don't know, we worked with him for about 3 years. And then he got so busy, he didn't want to give us prompts up in Monterey County anymore, because he got a big following across the western US. But he's still there, and I see his posts every once in a while. So he's a tremendous asset to have right here. And I do think there are a lot of online webinars where you don't really have to go in a place. You can do that. And
Once I free up
not
again
to
this
be,
time.
don't want to get sued here, but because we have a young person that's doing this for us, she grasps it. We're all talking about it from our limited knowledge, but
Very
Amanda
limited
gets it. I see what she does. So anyway, I think with a little bit of guidance on data, it was really useful.
That's all good feedback. One of the challenges for Amanda, as I can separate her from this role, is to find those resources that she needs to learn how to better do her job. And that's all good input for us.
I don't think Amanda's the only one who gets it. I go Facebook is fun, but I go on, and I see certain people on Facebook, giving information and updates and anniversaries and all sorts of things. Very well done.
I honestly, if you can become the go-to source for a piece of information, it is amazing how many people follow you. And I'll say, Lisa's done a really good job with their new business that they're launching. And I asked her, can I take it and share it? And then I see some of the interactions she gets. I know they came in because I shared it with 40 people who I know are interested in the product.
Who are you talking about?
Lisa,
Lisa.
Lisa,
Oh, you haven't been visiting?
you should be on social media. So anyway, but the point is that it's kind of the power of sharing and taking something and then finding appropriate people. I didn't put it out to a bazillion people, but I targeted people I knew that would be our clients. So anyway, it's just that. I think it's all of us. But I love when you post something, if you either tag me on it, because I still don't get your stuff like this on quick. I don't know why. I usually pick it up off of Lisa, so she gets it from you, and then I usually pick it up off of her.
We'll have you follow.
So, but anyway, just FYI, it's a way to do it, and I think it's the thing else to get timely information. I think we should put something out right now, say, hey, Portland's taking a rest, they'll be back. And when I got your email on your activities, I sent that to 3 people that I know have houses in Portland and back. They're all so appreciative because their flights have been canceled and they didn't know why. But I was like, you'll be back, go ahead and book Thanksgiving and Christmas and do whatever. So that's the sort of thing. And that's the good thing about social media. You don't have to plan it way in advance. It's, we got it.
Yeah. They better be back for Thanksgiving, otherwise my wife will.
Pardon?
They better be back for Thanksgiving, otherwise my wife will have. Will be in.
So anyway, Chris, thank you.
Thank you.
Director Miller, right. Nothing to add other than, yeah, I was a little bit shocked when I realized that you said 18 to 64 and I'm 66. And I'm the second youngest guy on this board.
Actually, we're changing the demo. We're going 18 to
Yeah.
75.
That'll be 76. and
76. How about everybody?
Let me
No, I
finish.
have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Okay.
for the presentation.
Let me finish, Mr. Chairman, by saying that we are privileged and blessed to have the expertise of Mr. Shidlaw helping us with our marketing. What we've been able to accomplish with his leadership and his knowledge of the market is brand this airport in this community. And one of the things when I got here that you said you wanted this airport to be was more part of the community. This is one way that we've done that. And a lot of that has been on the back of Mr. Chidlaw, who has taken us places where I was not aware of and we were not in. And it was kind of an added benefit to have Chris on the team with us. So, you know, I think I want to personally and professionally tell you that I appreciate Chris's efforts on our behalf. And I think there's that added benefit that we get from him that I'm not sure we would get elsewhere. So he's done a phenomenal job for us, and he's also a pretty good guy to work with.
So I do have to give our air service co-chair some time on this. We spent an awful lot of time on it in air service. And Director Sabal.
Okay, well, I'd just like to speak as a board member, member of your service, and although that was a couple of good sessions we had. I'm very pleased that we have this discussion about it, just to resurrect exactly why this became kind of an item that was back at the time that we were approving the FY 21-22 budget. And back in June, I raised concerns about the $183,000 of marketing, air service development, public relations budget we had, and there was no content that supported all that. It was just a number, it was a line item, and so at that point there was an agreement that air service committee, Director Percio and Mike, that we would flesh out what are we going to do with $183,000 with money, and is that enough, or is that much, or whatever. And thank you very much for this presentation. I saw in the Air Services Committee, your presentations, what you do very well, and what you do very well is media placement. And there's, the Arbitron ratings, the Nielsen ratings, that's your big. I take you at face value, that we're hitting the right targets out here with the right media. In looking at the plan, I had some questions that I raised at the committee meetings and all that, and I want to emphasize that any questions I raise aren't an attack. They're just questions and thoughts for, as Director Level went on, and talking about social media, I was concerned in the marketing plan, and I remain concerned about the lack of specifics and objectives. What is it that we really want to do? Putting more butts in seats, for to use of course language, is good. That's what we want to do. But that's what we do here. There's no question about all that. What kind of passengers? Where are we targeting our efforts? What are we trying to accomplish here with all of our marketing efforts? The plan kind of deviated, and that because of some of your information, your expertise in media placement, you kind of drifted an awful lot towards radio, TV, and some print placements out there. Some of the classic structure of a marketing plan were kind of missing, or we kind of glided over that. And I was concerned about that. We, at no point did we ever mention, and these are not criticism, they're just thoughts. We never indicated that we would like to survey people and find out where they want to go through the chamber, through this organization, through that organization, through our own survey mechanism. Surveying, I get surveys all the time. We all get surveys all the time. We don't have any surveys that actually ask people where they want to go, or how they feel about the airport, or what they'd like to see in the airport. That was missing in the marketing plan. What my concern also was, again, these aren't criticisms, but I'm worried about our content sometimes. We have something to sell here, and there's some 5 key things we have to sell, and they're all under that heading of convenience. Okay. Yes, we mentioned it's a convenient. I looked on the website. There's one little sentence that one little word about it's a convenient airport, but we have some specifics about convenient. It's close to home. We don't say those things, on our website and social media. And I did look at social media. I have to tell you, but I looked at Facebook. I looked at Instagram. All that stuff. And the content was missing this key component, and the message has to get out. And this is even in some of the TV ads, and it's not a criticism of TV ads, because sometimes we're emphasizing destinations and all that, but we can't fail to miss the convenience of this airport, because we're selling to our local customers. We're not selling to Dallas. We're not selling to Seattle. We're selling to our local customers, not only here on the Peninsula, but all the way down to Kingston, maybe in Santa Ana. I finally learned where that place is. Yeah. So we're close to home. There's no 101 traffic. That very end, very aptly. That's important. We used to have a billboard out there. And I think we still have to have a billboard. You'd already be there. A lot of airports do the same thing, but of our side. But we need to emphasize we're close to home, and we got cheap parking compared to San Jose. Although San Jose is got a real discount going on their parking right now, $15 to be nuts. And we got short TSA lines, something that's more frustrating for anybody to have to stand 20 minutes on TSA line. And we've got key connections to everywhere. And we can even do a connection out of here to Mexico through Dallas and also out of San Diego. We don't tell anybody about those things. And I think, and it's not a criticism, it's just that I think we need to expand beyond where we have been, because media placements for TV, radio, and some print is what we were doing when I came on board. And we certainly expanded, the quality is a lot better since I came on board. But I think we need to look at the content, and I was concerned about that. And I guess I raised the question for the board and for you and for Mike, is the money that we spend, this $183,000, enough money, particularly in the areas of the media placements and these other tools. We don't have a newsletter. San Jose has a newsletter. I'm talking about electronic newsletters here. We don't have a lot of these tools that other people that are part of a traditional marketing plan, and I think we need them. And some of them are a little bit more expensive. Maybe we need to put more money in. And if TV is the way to go, then maybe we need more TV. And the reason I'm so emphatic about all that is we are at a very critical watershed point here. There's a recovery, a COVID recovery period going on here. People are traveling to leisure destinations. We should be a part of that aggressive. And I want to see us maximize our marketing efforts right now, because we've got a lot of opportunities with new carriers or our existing carriers adding flights to put more passengers on airplanes here. We need to speak to our local audience here to indicate to the airlines that we can do that. We can put people on airplanes, and we've got it now a built-in justification for a new terminal if we choose to do that. Without that, if we don't maintain the growth in our air traffic and depend totally on whether airlines provide us flights so that there are more seats, I don't think it's a chicken and the egg problem. They're not going to put more people, more airplanes here, more seats here if we can't produce the passengers. So that's why I'm rather hysterical about improving our content as well as our methods for deriving who is our customer and what do they want. A target market of 18 to 64, or did we change it from Marianne? But that's
64 plus 1%.
yeah, it's that wide. Who are we not talking to? Okay, so maybe we need to segment some of our contact to those people. And I looked on the website, I looked on the social media and all that. I didn't see any reference to Salinas. I didn't see any reference to King City. I think that's what you meant. My urging was King City, not Salinas. But they represent a major portion of our population. And I bet you, I haven't seen the leakage study, which is, I guess, going to be coming out in the next 6 months or something like that.
Assuming you approve the contract.
Yes, okay, and the leakage study will identify maybe that we're losing that whole Highway 101 contingent all the way down to King City, and maybe we need to do more in that regard. That's where our untapped resource is. And so that's my concern about the existing marketing plan. It doesn't follow the typical structure. It doesn't have many of the tools that are in traditional marketing plans. And that's no fault on the media placement plan, but that's where our dollars are being spent right now. I'm an advocate, and I will propose that we consider a budget amendment based upon whatever staff believes is appropriate for maybe a $70,000 budget expansion, 50 to 60% budget expansion for more media and for expanding some of these tools to speak directly to our Salinas Valley residents as well as our Monterey Peninsula residents. So that's coming in the future. I can't do that today, but that's kind of where I'm going. I appreciate the staff. So, do you understand what I'm saying that, no, this is not an attack on anybody, but I think we're learning as we go.
And, you know, you brought up a good point when we met, I think last week, we do Hispanic radio, but Michael and I have talked about this. It's time for us to, and maybe some of that $7,000 could be switched to Hispanic television, because we talked about how many Hispanics are actually watching it. It's a little mind game, shell game. Because you can reach a lot of Hispanics, giants, and regulars, and KSBW. But I think it's also important for us to talk to that 12 or 14% of the population, and that's all it is. 12 or 14% of the population that only watches Hispanic news. So we're going to.
Yeah, good. I agree. I mean, there's a million things we can talk about. All I'm advocating for is expanding our thinking outside of what we have traditionally done and putting more definition behind many of the things that you alluded to. Relationships with all of these organizations mean nothing to me. They, unless there's some specifics, but I think there is some merit after talking to the mayor of Gonzales, Soledad, King City. They care about what's going on in Monterey County. They know about, I think you visited King City, they care about the things that you told them. The thing that they mentioned is the impact didn't really hit them. Why should they do it? Why should they do anything? What should elected officials do? What should they advocate for? Those are the kind of content things that I was headed for. I'm not in charge. I'm not the marketing guy, but I'm making suggestions and indicating my support for more dollars to get where we need to go. And finding out what our customers want, I think is really important. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. LaPierre, I'm going to second his motion.
I was gonna go there in a second. Go ahead, Maria.
I just had one more thing I want to add. I would strongly encourage us to join the Marina Chamber of Commerce. They have a very active webpage, social media, and they're doing a lot of events that if you live on this side of the peninsula, you really don't pay much attention to them, but they also encourage a lot of involvement with CSU and P, so you get that, and you have a lot of people who work at NPS primarily who live in Marina. So the Marina Chamber, I would say, it's not expensive, and it's and the Marina Foundation has they're doing a 2-year award because they didn't do it for COVID, the Man Woman of the Year, which they do every year. So the Marina Foundation might also be something just to help sponsor a dinner or do something. But those are things that really draw in the population that flies in out of Marina. So I would suggest that. The other thing I want to say, Bill, about the survey, we've done surveys, Carl, 2 or 3 times since I've been on the board, and they really didn't give us much. You know, we had people standing, why did you fly here? Where did you come from? Blah, blah. But the leakage study, it seems that it's done right. And I think they use credit card information of who's going where, what their destinations are. Is that correct? And where they're flying from and to. So it seems like that would answer the question, Bill, to me, of what people want, and particularly what people want that we're not providing. So it might be that we've got an opportunity to take a look at that. The other thing is when you talk to people who are, I'm going to say primarily consultants or who do business across the US, their number one thing continually is they want to be able to start from here and go east. And that was why when Delta pulled out all those 12 or 13 years ago, it was so hard because we lost that Salt Lake connection. I know Delta has given us the pass every time they don't want to talk to us. But if we could look at one more eastern headed route, no matter what the airline is, I think that would be really to our advantage. And fortunately, the low-cost carrier that was coming in, going to Burbank, you know, it moves people down the coast, but it doesn't move them east. And so I think there's a lot of east-west traveling back and forth across the US if we could do that. So I just wanted to say that, and I meant to say something about the Marina Chamber when I spoke earlier, but to address the survey, it'll be interesting to see if the leakage study gives us, then if it's not adequate, then maybe we do need to do a survey, but that would be my 2 cents on it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to have a little rebuttal.
Rebuttal to who? Point down the point.
Bill, can I ask you to, I haven't said my piece yet.
Well,
And
on
I'm
the other
going
hand, I mean, Director Lovell kind of jumped in there, I would say, and said, I want to correct something about the survey. I'm not talking about an airport survey out here. That's kind of what I think we've done before. Any survey I get when I get out of an airplane or I get out of an airplane, yeah, I can get rid of it. What we had a situation with the Monterey Chamber wanted to do a survey on their members about what we wanted, or what they wanted in terms of destination, what they thought of the airport. We never followed up on all that. They asked us specifically to do that. We never did that. So I'm suggesting that we not have an on-site survey, but what rather we survey through the many groups that we have relationships with and find out what people want to do. And it's not a matter of, I think this is kind of integral to identifying what our market is and what our objectives ought to be. And I don't know that the leakage study by itself will really tell us all that much about what people want to do. It's what they have done, or what they want to do in the future is important for us to know. Yeah, I say that with all due respect. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So I'm going to take this a little out of order now because I'd like to address this particular point while it's fresh on all of our plates. At the Air Service Committee, did we not have this discussion, and did we not say that if all our contracts get signed, that our consultants would be able to give us much of this information that we're talking about, that we're requesting, would come through them?
Yes. We use consultants who have the data available through either credit card information or through DOT data, the data that the airlines report to the Department of Transportation. So we have a good handle on where people are traveling to from here. We use that data to isolate what markets need attention, if you will. So that's part of the recipe for how we do air service development is what's the market need? What's the current travel habits of our market? And where's the delta between our current service pattern and what our market needs? And that's how we determine it, is we look at that data and we do that analysis.
Thank you. So we spent a very large amount of time on this topic in our air service meeting. We actually ended up having to have 2 sessions. And much of what Director Sabo has said that he felt that we should look at, or maybe some suggestions, I actually do agree with. One being that I think that we could do a better job on the website as far as touting our 5 click-offs of why we're so easy to use, et cetera, et cetera. We talked about that. I think that the executive director agreed that we were going to do that. So that's one thing. As far as adding dollars to the budget, no one would be more thrilled than Chris Chidlaw if we added dollars to the budget. And I'm certainly not against that. I think that we can't just say, let's add $70,000 to the budget. We need this, we're gonna have to spend some time on this and take a look at it, and we can do it in air service to want to come back to this board with what are we gonna spend this additional money on and how it's allocated, et cetera. I think that we can do that at Air Service, and I think that we should take that back when the time is right. It's not simply a matter of doing a budget amendment for $70,000 to raise the marketing budget. That being said, I absolutely respectfully disagree with Director Sabo on his perception of us underserving Salinas and the Salinas Valley. It's just not true. We are doing tremendous amounts not only of public service, but our advertising on TV, a big piece of it is directed directly at that Salinas Valley customer. And I think we're doing a darn good job. And I think that our statistics and analytics that we bring up point that out. So on that point, I disagree. All in all, Chris, I would like to re-echo the executive director's sentiments. Thank you for what you do for us. I happen to know you through many other arenas, and I know that not everyone in your business has the rapport with these television stations as you do, because you came from there. And you get us great value, and a lot of that is because you are connected to those television networks, and they accept you as you're one of them, and it works. The one thing I do want you to share quickly, because I thought it was really interesting when we had our go through at Air Service, is the great value we get on air compared to, say, a San Jose. Just real quick.
Oh, yeah, well, again, we talked about the San Jose airport, that they said couldn't buy TV because we buy TV and they don't. And the reason why, if you look at the Bay Area, San Jose is here. They don't want, when you buy the Bay Area, you buy Marin, you buy Contra County with Danville and Concord, you buy the whole Bay Area when you buy a KTVU or a KGO. San Jose does not want to spend the $5,000 to buy KGO morning news that we spend $100 to talk to Marin. They're not going to get people from Marin, or to talk to Danville. So the TV market is so different in such a big area like the Bay Area. So they don't do that. That's why we're so fortunate. If you can buy television, it is the #1 branding thing in the world. That's why we're fortunate to do it along with social media. They're not, San Jose is there, they want to talk about the Sunnyvale, San Jose, Fremont. Oakland, they got an airport. San Francisco has an airport. So it's just not cost efficient for somebody like them to buy TV like it is here.
In other words, we have the ability to actually be on the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
I mean,
A Super Bowl spot for the San Jose International Airport is $50,000.
and what's it for us? It
Doesn't make any sense for them to buy.
So anyway, I think that's really important, because
Yeah,
we get tremendous bang for our buck, and I think we should never forget that, because we're fortunate to be able to do that, but it works well for us.
I have a client, and we talked about Carmel Stone Imports as a place of Palo Alto. So I do business in the Bay Area all the time. Chris, can you tell me about a 49er game? 49er game in Monterey, $750. 49er game on KPPU Channel 2, $28,000. He's not going to buy. I wish he would. And so that is the difference between the two markets.
All right, anyway, Chris, thanks for your time. I know you're a busy guy, and we appreciate you running this through for us. At this time, I'd like to ask if anyone from the public would like to make a comment on this subject. If so, please raise your hand. Seeing no one, Chris, thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And Chris, I don't have any questions. I'm just wondering, it's a presentation, so what are we doing as a board? This is just being presented to us, correct?
Well, there's no action required.
And I'll just wrap up. Thank you for the kind words. I love working for you guys. I love working for you. It's fun. I love when we put commercials and print out there, and my friends come up. Oh, hey, you got to just like Seattle. You got to just like Portland. I really, really enjoyed it. I always think directly up when we got you for putting in here. Thank you. Mr. Sable, thank you, Director Sable, because it's been actually a great exercise for us to tighten up what we're doing and to make sure that you guys are happy.
I echo that so much.
And this is thank you.
Really good job. Director
So-
Golden.
A couple of things that I don't see in here, and I'm sorry, I asked my social media questions, I was trying to follow that, but our website and our app that we've developed, if we can make sure that that's part of this plan.
I actually have
to-
the app right here.
Okay, I just, and I'm still struggling. I think my hardest part is who are the flyers for Monterey? And I understand with TV, we're targeting that 18 to 64 group. But if there's ways we can collect more information, and I'm hesitant with surveys because it's a matter of who responds and things of that nature. But if there's other ways to gain information, I know there is in social media, but even just as a whole, that to me is still somewhat of a whole for me, is who really is flying in and out of our airport. What, are they business travelers? Are they leisure travelers? We know we've got our, people that come from Dallas quite a bit and frequently, things of that nature. But just any more information we could get there. So I know it's a presentation. I don't know exactly what's being done with this at this point. It will go back to marketing services, or it's a complete document at this point?
So in air service, we specifically discussed what would be nice additions to this plan. We've talked about all of them this morning. And if you have any other additional input that you'd like to make, now's the time to do it.
Okay, so the website and the app are two things that I'd like to see in addition. So, and I think there's been others too, but certainly appreciate the time and the social media efforts that I see my mic isn't on. Apologies. The social media efforts that we do, I think are great. I think we really are articulate in that. And then Chadla, what you do as far as placement and all the wonderful places you go. Just for me, the hardest part, and it's always the nebulous part of marketing. Who are you truly reaching? And that 18 to 64 is such a big category. If there was any way to shrink that down, I know social media, there's ways to do that, but in other things too.
Well, one thing I'm working on right now is to shrink down whiskey. I'm gonna find out exactly who those people are.
We'll know where some of them are.
Make sure that
And I would say, and I don't want to step on Mr. Rivera or Chairman, but I would say it's more like a working document. I mean, we're gonna continue to, all the input that we got from everybody, and we're just gonna keep doing that's the request of the board, so.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks again, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Executive Director, can you tee up item 3, please?
Yeah. That item, however, was to be addressed in closed session first, and then we're going to ask you to come out of closed session and ratify.
Yes, we'd like to continue the item until after closed session.
Okay, very good.
So if you would, Mr. Chairman, move to item 4.
Sure.
Item 4 is a resolution authorizing the service agreement between the Airport District and Randazzo Enterprises. This is for the demolition of Building 505. Hold your applause, please. We're finally there. Chris Morello will walk you through the specifics of the agreement, and then we would ask you to ratify it so we can move forward.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi. So yes, Building 505. As we all know, for a few years, we have been monitoring the integrity of this building. And as vacancies have occurred, we have not been re-signing any leases. We had one tenant that was still in there and had been in there for a bit, but it was determined last year to relocate that last tenant due to roof leaks and other maintenance issues that really had expanded our safety concerns. So with that, we went in after we have relocated that tenant and did a hazard assessment. We did some abatement to that building. And now it really has been determined it is way more expensive to try to renovate than to demo. So we are at that place where it is really important to do a demolition of this building. And this project has been included in your approved capital improvement program. We went out for solicitation to our list. We continue to keep a hiring list as required under our procurement policies in the Uniform Construction Code Act. We sent out a notice of solicitation to over 30 individuals that, or companies that had indicated that they might do demolition. We received, we had a non-mandatory pre-bid walk, and then we received 2 proposals were submitted in response to the request for proposals. After evaluating those 2, and the other one was GGG, which was the company that actually did the hazard abatement. Their proposal was $108,000. Randazzo was $45,889. They are a local company. GGG is out of Orange County. It was determined that they were the appropriate company to request the board approve that the airport executive director do a purchase order agreement with Randazzo. So with that, I would request that you adopt resolution 1807 and authorize the service agreement between the Monterey Peninsula Airport District and Randazzo Enterprises, and authorize the executive director to execute the associated purchase order. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Before we come to the board, I'd like to ask if there's any member of the public that would like to make comment on this item. Seeing none, we'll come back to the board and we'll start with Director Love.
Thank you. I support this. Something came in front of me, I guess it was yesterday when I was listening to that future transportation. And this is probably a question for Scott. Scott, going forward, not with this one, but can we put a, when we go out for a request for proposal, can we ask that anyone who is working on airport property be vaccinated in our proposals?
The short answer is yes, you can. There are, so I'll give you just the chain of how I'm going to string this together. You are governed by federal laws, generally speaking, as an airport. The federal government has put in place regulations that will allow those who contract with either the federal government or federal operators, which technically you fall under that large umbrella. You can require individuals to be vaccinated. Having said that, there is everyone is waiting for OSHA to drop their their much anticipated emergency regulations related to vaccinating for companies of 100 employees and over. It's anticipated that that's going to have some additional requirements for those that contract, for contractors who receive federal funds or projects that are federally funded. That's how this is all linked in, because these are ultimately airport funds, federal funds that we receive in large measure. And so again, the short answer, yes, you can going forward. It's anticipated there will be some specific regulations in that OSHA order that we're all waiting for it to drop.
So I've been following that, but I also have been involved with a couple of things just recently where the person who is doing hiring on their property has said, I will not hire XYZ because the crew is not vaccinated. Not to get into vaccinations, yes or no, but a way to get people to comply is money. So I think it's something we should be maybe looking at, and can we set our own policy on it, not waiting for OSHA? That's when we give up contract. Because the larger firms, they've got different crews. They can mix and match. It's not like we're saying you cannot have a contract. We're just saying for us specifically, if you're going to work on our property, because if they use our restrooms, if they come in the building, or they go to our restaurant, or they sit in our lunchroom, or whatever they do, we know that someone from the outside can impact us. And if we're trying masks in the terminal, and from what came in that future transportation yesterday, I think airlines are probably anticipating there's all of this sort of thing that's coming. I'm just trying to get ahead of it, and see if there's something, or are we just stupid to do that? We just sit back and wait for the federal government to
Well,
mandate it.
I think you're not going to have to wait very long for either the state or the feds to mandate. I think that's rapidly coming, and I don't want to, again, I will not get political, but I will tell you, I suspect now that we are on this side of the recall election with the result we got, we're probably going to get Cal OSHA that's going to be issuing some more direct orders relating to that. Those are the rumblings that I'm hearing from some of my colleagues that work, under the smaller dome, not the Washington DC dome, but the one in Sacramento. Those are the rumblings, is that they expect Cal OSHA to issue some more stringent orders. Now that's just rumor and speculation, but I suspect that's coming pretty quickly.
But I believe it's a protection for our employees, because our employees interact with whoever the contractors are on site. So I was just listening to everything yesterday in that forum, and some things that came up at the CSDA conference. I just wanted to bring it up and ask. I'm sorry, doesn't affect this one because this one's done, but just going forward, if we could maybe put something in our RFPs and do it, and then we don't get caught. Because if we give a contract and then they're working and then the law changes, kind of like you can't go back until I'm looking at the application. So that was it, and I will be in support of this.
Director Miller.
Thank you. We did talk about this extensively, not about the vaccine, but about the bid. We only got 2 responses. This one was considerably lower. It is something that the firm specializes in, and it's a local company. So the lease committee recommended approval of.
Director Sabo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had I'm in support of this particular resolution to this agreement with the that zone. It's one of the great things. But I want to indicate my response to the suggestions from Director Butler. And I don't think we ought to be in the business of mandating vaccinations. It needs to be on a case by case basis. Certainly, contractors will be working inside this terminal or staff. I would certainly think that we ought to consider that. On the other hand, I don't want us to limit our ability to hire contractors who are going to be out digging dirt to respond to a contract here, because they can't guarantee that all of their people are going to be vaccinated. And so I'm the first one to be a strong advocate of vaccination, but I think I ought to apply across the board to contracts that we approve for implement there. For example, it's unfortunate that they're getting very good last on that. I did have some questions on this. I don't know, I guess it's a contract or work order or whatever it is. Where is the materials that they're going to extract during the disposal here? Where are they going to be done? That isn't indicated here in the contract.
I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I think you
Okay.
asked where they were going to be, the materials were going to be dumped.
Materials that they, in demolition, where are they taking the hazardous materials?
There are no hazardous materials. That has been taken care of. They are going to recycle at least 65% of the materials from the building and the rest will be disposed of, and that is their requirement.
Okay, where are they doing all this disposal work? Is it off the airport site or somewhere else? Where's it?
Absolutely, it will go to the recycle center or the landfill, either one, but they have to find a certified place to dispose of all of the materials.
we have to approve where they take it? Because what I'm concerned about here is the extent in which they take it to a site that is controversial, or they dump it beside the road or something like that, and we are now subject to a lot of bad publicity or even a lawsuit. So
Again, I'm having a hard time hearing you. I can't hear you.
You gotta speak, right? When you turn and look at the screen, the microphone doesn't pick up your
And
voice.
so the microphone is right here on this part, so if you talk directly to the cart, it'll catch your
okay,
voice.
so I'm using this microphone.
That helps amplify your voice, so that way that can get better.
Okay, we've had trouble with this microphone before. So I'm concerned about our liability if they inappropriately dispose of this material. And do they have to inform the airport about where they're disposing of these materials?
They are required and have certified that they will meet all state requirements for disposal and recycle. So we will get that certification.
Okay. This says that the airport, they're going to provide, we're going to provide a water meter. What is that for? Why are we providing them a water meter?
That is typically how we do it. They need to do dust suppression as they're taking down the building. So we will provide them with a water meter, and then the cost will be associated to the project for the water that is being used.
Okay, so there's a water connection here and a water meter. We take the one. What happens to the water meter after we stay there?
Again, talking to the microphone, please, so I can hear it. I'm sorry.
What happens to the water meter once it's done?
It's our water meter. So we just attach it to a hydrant. We calculate the gallons that are used for the truck, the water truck that will do suppression of dust. And then we take that meter back into our possession. We keep meters for this purpose for all construction projects.
And then it indicates that the site will be USA. What does that mean?
It means that they will have someone come out and do utility location prior to doing demolition, as you would do with any project before you dig, call before you dig.
Would you pause a minute? I can't hear.
USA is the service where you call them beforehand, they'll come out, they'll mark all utilities and the location of all utilities, so that when they do their work, they won't inadvertently hit a gas line or an electric line that's buried in the ground. They mark all the utilities in the ground where they are.
Okay.
That's what that USA stands. I can't remember the acronym as I'm sitting here right now, but when they say it'll be USA, does that mean underground something?
Service, yeah, identification.
Are we responsible for that, or are they responsible?
They are responsible for it. They'll call a number. I think it's 811. They call a number and someone will come out within 72 hours and do that for them.
Okay, and then finally, the final question I had was, there's a whole bunch of exclusions and for general contractors, owner's responsibility with a bunch of X marks in there. What does that say? Are these things we have to do, he has to do, or, I mean,
What these are exclusions. So for example, they're not touching a basement. If there's a basement there, they're not touching it. That's why that's excluded from here. It says layout. If the layout turns out to be different than we have advertised in the RFP, they're not going to be responsible for a differing layout. If there's a septic tank that we don't know about that's underneath there, they're not going to be responsible for taking out any septic tanks. Now we know there aren't going to be any there, but in general projects that they do, sometimes you find random stuff underneath the ground.
Sure.
That they just don't know is there. What they're saying is, we're not going to be responsible to move any random stuff underneath the ground, despite the fact that the concrete is going to remain, right? I mean, we're kind of stepping over that step. We're skipping over.
These are excluded from the contract.
These are excluded from the contract.
But the thing that caught my attention says owner's responsibility.
Yeah, that's us.
Yeah, so.
Again, which we,
No,
And
what it means is if they find some of these, we're responsible for it.
All right, that answers my questions. Thanks a lot.
Can I just add, for Director Sable's peace of mind that Randazzo is the largest demolition contractor in the three-county area. And they just finished all of CDAC Hill. They did all of that work, Hill, for Marina. That's adjacent.
I
to
wasn't
the-
questioning their qualifications, I was just, I like that name.
Well, I think you were questioning whether or not they would take things to the appropriate place. I was just saying they've had some major contracts and they have performed that.
Call for a motion, resolution 1807.
So moved.
Second,
Discussion. Amanda, roll call.
Director Sonny,
Yes.
Director Lapple,
yes.
Director Sabo.
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Chair Garcia.
Yes. Executive Director, do you want to tee up number 5?
Absolutely. This is resolution 1808. It is authorization to purchase a new maintenance truck for our maintenance department. It is part of our budget. And the results of the bid process will be covered by Chris Morello, but we did receive 3 bids, and the recommendation will be to authorize us to move forward with my Chevrolet. Chris, you want to take it from there?
Absolutely, thank you. As provided by our fleet management and policy and procedures, one of the maintenance vehicles, which is a 2001 Ford Ranger, well beyond the life of our policy, which our policy is usually 10 years. It's over, this is a 20-year vehicle. So we've got a good life out of it, but at this point, it's cost inefficient to continue to repair it. So as part of the budget this year, the capital improvement budget this year, we included the purchase of 2 potential vehicles. This is one of the 2. This vehicle will be adding to the fleet a second vehicle that has a tailgate, a lift tailgate, which is really important and helpful when we're moving large pieces of equipment or materials, which is what our maintenance team is doing very often. For example, those barriers that you see out by where we have the virus geeks, to move those around really requires a vehicle with the lift gate. So this will be our second vehicle with a lift gate, which will really round out our fleet extremely well for our maintenance team. As Executive Director Lapierre indicated, we did look at a Ford, we looked at a Dodge Ram, and then we looked at the Chevrolet. The Chevrolet was the most cost-effective piece of equipment that meets these needs and had they responded to our request and included all of the components that we requested and needed. And this is a cost not to exceed $53,000. As with the other one, I recommend that you adopt Resolution 1808, a resolution authorizing and approving the purchase agreement between the Monterey Peninsula Airport District and my Chevrolet, and authorizing the Executive Director to execute the associated purchase order. And with that, again, I'm glad to answer any questions.
Would any member of the public have comment on this item? Seeing none, we're going to bring it back to the board. We're going to start with Director Sabo.
Okay, thanks a lot. Just a couple of quick questions here. On this particular agreement with my Chevrolet, warranty are they giving us on this thing? Is it like a 7-year warranty, 5-year warranty? What? Can you hear me?
I think you asked about the warranty. I am looking to see if we have that information on this one. And I don't believe we have that yet. So again, this was a quote. Once we get the actual vehicle, because they now need to procure it, we will get the warranty information that will go along with it. Just reading.
Chevy warranty is a 3-year, 36,000 mile warranty. That's the typical Chevy warranty.
Yeah.
The question is more to the point. Because we are modifying the vehicle to make it work for us, does that warranty still stand? we're still waiting for that.
I think it's worth paying attention. I would just raise the point. of
That's
negotiation.
fine.
You know, if they'll give us 5, we'll buy from them, or, you know, something like that. The other question I had was, does anybody have 0% financing on this thing? Do we have our money rather than pay back?
Yeah,
We investigate that.
we traditionally do not borrow money to purchase small things like this. The number sounds large, but in the sphere of what we do, it's not that large of a number. We have capital, we budgeted for this. We did not budget to borrow money. So our recommendation is that we pay cash for it.
Okay, well, it's worth asking the question in future contracts, you know, interest rates are what they are, you know, but if 5% of their money or 6% of their money are cash reserves.
We wish.
Yeah, if we
truly
in some-
wish. Yeah.
We live on precedent here. It's things that we've never done or have done in the past, so I'm suggesting that that'll be consideration when we buy stuff. And this is a question for Scott. I know that we have to pay sales tax because California government entities are exempt, but I've never really been clear. Are we paying when they impose sales tax on it? Are we paying Monterey City sales tax, county tax? Is it where we buy it or
So-
where we live?
So vehicles are different than most goods that you purchase. Because the state recognized years ago that people would go to a location farther away that has a lower sales tax rate to get a discount on the sales tax. They'd travel, you know, on a large purchase, like on a $100,000 purchase, you save $1,000 if you can find some place that has 1% lower sales tax. So that's different than most goods. Most goods, you pay the sales tax at the point of sale in the location where you buy it. With vehicles, there is a separate rule. You pay the sales tax for where you will register, the sales tax rate at the location where you will register the vehicle. However, you pay it to the jurisdiction where you buy it. So the rate of the jurisdiction doesn't apply. It's the rate of where you reside.
Okay, are we residing? Are we residing
Monterey
in the
County.
city of Monterey? So we pay Monterey County.
You pay Monterey County.
Okay, we pay their tax rate.
You pay Monterey County
City
sales
of
tax
Monterey.
rate. That's correct.
Okay.
You don't pay City of Salinas rate. You pay Monterey County rate on vehicle purchase.
Okay.
You will pay it to the City of Salinas if you can prove this, because that's where the dealer is located. But you will pay the rate for Monterey County.
All right, I can support this resolution. Thank you.
Director Level?
I have nothing to say. I think it's overdue, so it's good.
Director Miller?
Finance committee reviewed it, we were supportive of it as well, and I am personally as well.
I ask for a motion to accept resolution 1808.
Second.
Discussion. Commander, roll call.
Director Tawny,
Yes.
Director Level,
Yes.
Director Sabo.
Yes.
Director Miller,
Not that warranty again. Yes, I'm in favor.
Chairman Smith.
Yes. Thank you. Okay.
What would you like to warranty?
Moving on to item 6, Landry and Brown, Executive Director.
This is a task order for air service consulting services with the firm of Landry and Brown. As explained in the staff report, we've been working with Landry and Brown for about 3 years, actually since 2018. And I found working with them to be very beneficial. They've been instrumental in some of our recent successes. The work that they do is exemplary. and I would like to continue to work with them. The difference here, we've always worked under work orders. This is a different animal. This is a 3-year work order for the price of $3,500 a month, $42,000 a year, for all of the services that they will provide us going forward for that 3-year period. Inclusive in the scope is the completion of an amplified leakage study, or origin and destination study, as it is referred to in the document. Amplified being, traditionally, we've always seen a leakage study looking at just outbound traffic, where we're losing our outbound traffic to. This one will, because there is new data available through Landor Brown, we'll look at inbound traffic as well. So people coming from New York, where are they booking to? If their ultimate destination is Monterey, are they booking to Monterey, or are they booking to San Jose or San Francisco? So we're going to get a snapshot of something that we haven't seen before, which I think will be pretty telling in our air service development efforts as well. It's kind of the second leg in that stool. We'll be able to know where our people are traveling, but we're a destination, so we ought to know where people that are coming here are traveling to as well. So the origin and destination effort will take place during the first year of the contract. Typically, we do those every 3 years. It's been 4 years since we did our last. This is a cost-effective way of doing business with a group that has been very effective for us. In the past, we've spent, in 2018, we spent $57,000 in air service development. That did not include, none of these numbers will include the leakage study. 57,000 in 2017, 89,000 in 19. I'm sorry, 18 was 57,000. 19 was 82,000, and then in 20 we scaled back to 19,000 because air service development in the year 2020 was not something that really was going to be beneficial, because we were all trying to figure out what the impacts of COVID would be. But this would be $42,000 a year for everything that we would need. So when we go to an airline, it's the buildup of all of the data, it's the presentation development, it's all of the analysis, and then it is also accompanying me to the airlines, also assisting in getting airline meetings. These are things that we do traditionally on a one-off work order. This is a work order that will cover the entirety of the sphere. It is not limited to a specific number of opportunities that we would perhaps mine in our analysis. So we might talk to 10 airlines, where we might talk to one airline. We just don't know, but it gives us the flexibility. Regardless, it's a fixed fee. There is one addition to the contract, or to the work order, that I've negotiated, and that would be a 60-day cancellation clause. After reviewing the work order and going back and looking at the master service agreement, there isn't a cancellation clause available to us. I was under the impression, wrongly, that there was a 30-day cancellation clause. There is not in either document. So we will be adding a 60-day cancellation clause. So if things go awry, bases change, economics change, you have the ability to cancel this contract in 60 days. Again, I feel very comfortable working with Landor & Brown. They've been very effective. They're very, very well received in industry. And I would recommend that you authorize the executive director to execute this work with.
And what we have budgeted for this?
We have $30,000 in air service development, and we have $20,000 in public relations. The $30,000 is for air service development. The $20,000 was for a leakage study.
So this spends less.
This spends less. Yeah.
Would any member of the public like to comment on this item? Seeing no one, we're going to bring it to the board and we'll start with Director Sonic.
We reviewed this in finance committee, so quite familiar with it, and I thank the executive director for getting the historical numbers that we had spent. It certainly seems to be, you know, a reasonable amount when you look at it historically, not including 2020, our year, but for overall spending. And I will note that it didn't include transportation. I think any conferences or anything, not conferences, I'm sorry, any
No.
meetings
Yeah.
that would take place or anything of that nature would be in addition to that. But overall, I'm in favor of it. Thank you.
Director Miller?
No, I'm in favor of it. I know it's written in here somewhere, but when did we have our last leaking study
It's
report?
been 4 years.
Okay. It was timely. How often is it recommended that we do it?
Typically 3. So we skipped last year because
It was last
a
year.
number of different issues. Yeah.
Thank you.
Director Loeffler?
No, I've read that.
Director Sabo?
Could you refresh me again? You mentioned this before, and then I forgot. What's the timeline for the leakage study
Within the first year.
within the?
So
first year? Any-
realistically, maybe 6 months, but we
Can
haven't.
we accelerate that? Do you have a good enough relationship with them that they can accelerate that to a year from now?
Yeah.
It kind of misses our marketing targets.
We certainly have very good relationships. I can have that conversation with them. Yeah.
Okay. And then this didn't come up in the marketing presentation, but I'm sure you have some ideas. You will request L&B to assist you in approaching various airlines. What target airlines are you going to be asking them to help you?
I can't give you a list right now because of the way the industry works. How about if I give you this? The first target will remain and has been for a while now, an affordable fare carrier. And that speaks directly to your impetus to try to get more of the Salinas-based traffic to use this airport. I think that there's a dichotomy in the services that we offer here and the services that are attractive in the Salinas Valley, and it's based a lot on affordability. And I believe that the opportunity to bring in a ultra low fare carrier to the market accomplishes that goal, but also provides some pricing competition in the market to keep our legacy carriers honest. That's the first target. Second target is there's new entrant carriers out there that we have had and will continue to have discussions with. That's the second target. That would be a longer range East Coast or Midwest flight that would look more like a Chicago or a New York or something along that line. That's our second target.
And you're convinced that L&B has the kind of inside track connections that would enable you with some of these discount fares. Is that correct?
They have the ability to get us in the door, and their reputation is strong enough that when we go in with what we believe is a valid analysis, that it will be well received.
Do they help you do L&B track people? People
Conquest.
do they prepare a package with you?
They do.
To present.
They
So
do.
It's not just the burden is not just on your shoulders.
No. They do much of the prep work. They do the presentation. We add the spice about the community, the things going on in the community. Airlines want to see the data, principally because they have access to that data, but they don't take the time to do that data for every market. They don't go mining for new markets. The way this works is we do the mining for them. We present it to them. They validate the data that we have. All of that will be done by L&B.
And then I guess it sounds like they're doing monthly some kind of monthly air service updates. Is that-
That's a conversation. We have at least a monthly meeting on phone to talk about current industry direction and what's new with airlines, so that also informs our targets.
And they're doing it also quarterly. In other words, I guess where I'm going is that information that you can share on a regular basis, monthly or quarterly with air services. And maybe the board if it's appropriate.
Yeah, I hesitate to bring forward target airlines to a public meeting, but certainly, as I've done in the past, you'll know what the targets are and you'll know what we're working on.
All right. I can easily support this. I guess it's a resolution for adoption on this whole thing.
So
With an amendment that says whether the addition of a 60-day cancellation cost, that was one of my questions before. So that would be at the appropriate time, that would be my resolution.
So are you making it as a form of motion?
Yes.
All right, second,
Second,
any discussion? Amanda, roll call, please.
Director Sani,
Yes.
Director Level,
yes.
Director Sabo,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Chair Quincy.
Yes. Thank you. Moving on to item H, please start motion.
The orders have been placed.
Wonderful.
Oh, well, they are about to be placed. How about that?
All right, moving on to item H, and we'll start with A, standing committees. Before we go to standing committees, I again would like to give the board an opportunity to take a break. You gotta take 5 first. Let's take 5. Trying to get us to this. The coffee and water is. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for indulging us. We will now move on to item H, and I would like to give any member of the board an opportunity to ask questions on possibly anything that they might have on department reports, if we are not going to cover it in any of the standing committees. And please be as brief as possible, but if anybody would like to do any of the department questions, now would be a good time, and we'll start with Director Miller.
You know, I have no questions at this time. Thank you.
Director Son,
No questions.
Director Loeffler.
I did have one on the lack of taxis. And obviously, those two people were on the
Yeah.
same
Yep.
flight coming in. That I did notice the same thing when I came in from Dallas on the 9 o'clock flight, that we did not have enough taxis.
When was that?
Director Harvey.
Houston, no, Houston, I was just in Houston. Week and a half ago.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
First
and it
I've
was the
heard.
9 o'clock flight. What it was, our flight came in, and then I think whatever comes in is San Diego, the second flight.
You were on 9 o'clock.
Alaska came in
Phoenix.
right after.
Were you on the Phoenix flight?
I was on the Dallas,
The Dallas flight?
and it got
No, I think coming in after that would have been Los Angeles. I think. So I don't
Okay,
know.
well, well, it was Alaska. I
Was
thought
it Alaska?
Alaska.
Then it would have been, yeah, then it would have been.
Anyway, my point is that, and our flight was early. So I kind of like thought, okay, well, if they're thinking about flight schedules, but because we were about 30 minutes early. But it was a shortage of them. And
Okay.
people were walking back and forth and trying to call people.
First, I heard of another problem. The ones that are in the passenger comments were related to Car Week, and we did have a shortage then for obvious reasons. We had a shortage also in Uber and Lyft. But that's the first I'd heard in a non-Car Week environment. We did sign up.
And that was a
Marina Coast
Saturday
Cab.
night.
Okay.
It was a week ago Saturday.
Okay. We did sign up Marina Coast Cab. think it's called Arena Fest Cab, but we have another cab company that will be operating. there.
Yeah, I saw they rejoined the RTA, so.
Yeah, they've signed up with us as well.
And that's obviously, I will tell you, because CSUB is back in session, and they get a lot of calls from CSUB, and when they were not in session, in person.
Yeah.
It didn't matter to them, so that's good. And then the other question I had on that was the no signage on 16 till the airport. Are they thinking about 218 at that corner?
My
Who followed up on this with them?
we typically don't have a way to follow up on that. I don't believe that there's unless they give us a name and a contact information, there's no way for us to follow up. It's just.
Do we look to see if there are signs?
I'm sorry?
Do we look to see if there are signage?
Of course, yeah. There are no signs on Highway 68, and I would, based on that comment, assume that they were talking about a Highway 68 sign at the intersection. And we started down the road with Caltrans for additional signage. That got waylaid by the discussion about the 68 expansion and the 68 remodel, if you will. What else you want to call that?
You won't live long enough to see that.
Probably not. So we have some signage issues that need to be addressed, and we did start down the road with Caltrans about that.
Have we done anything though in the last year on it, or is
No,
it just?
no, we have not.
Okay, so maybe it's time to re-engage. 'Cause
right.
I know a couple people, I think the District 5 person retired, so it's
Good to know.
probably time. But I thought it was an interesting comment, and I go back to when I first came here, I was coming here to pick somebody up, and I just went on Airport Road, thinking that was like the way to the airport, and so.
Well, with you.
What a silly thing to think.
Yeah, I don't know why you would go there.
I know, but it does speak to, and particularly we want people to come from Salinas Valley and to come from other places where they're not just really around here. So. And Highway 68 looks kind of, Garden Road looks abandoned right now, particularly if you're after 5 o'clock, with all of that fencing up and stuff overgrown, because nobody's keeping up those properties while it's all sitting there. So it would probably be good if we could get some good signage. That was all.
What department of yours works with that sort of thing? Is it maintenance? Is it operations? Who does that?
Planning.
Who?
Planning.
Planning?
Director Sabo, did you have any questions on the department?
Yeah, I do. This is for finance accounting.
So, hang on, are we gonna cover that under finance?
I don't know.
Well, yeah, we are.
I have a question about the information that department provided in the package. And I don't know whether you covered it in the committee meeting or not, so you want me to save everything to the finance committee meeting?
Yes, if it's a finance question, I have specifically asked that we ask.
I know what you said.
Okay, good, then do
Mr.
it.
Chairman, what I have a question about is the report submitted by the finance department. Okay, now is that part of the finance committee report, or is it,
Part of the finance
where is
committee.
that?
It is part of the finance committee.
All right.
What
I'll
else?
save it.
Okay, what else? That's it?
Well,
Okay, thank you. Let's start with budget and finance. Director Son.
We had a good meeting. We reviewed a couple of the resolutions that we looked at today, the demolition of the building as well as the My Chevrolet bid. Mary Ann, maybe you can share a little bit about your thoughts with the CSDA speaker that spoke. I think that's probably what we spent the most time on, or out of just our normal looking at the review of what we typically do as well.
So I suggested that I sit through a really good presentation with a gentleman by the name of Julio. Do you remember his last name?
No.
Martinez, maybe.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
From UFI down in Tustin. And the presentation was fabulous with all the alternatives that he gave for possibilities of what to do with pensions. And so, and then I see that we got an email from our executive director saying that
PFM.
PFM is expected to give us their report shortly. So I will say this, I think it would be very unethical and unprofessional of me to ask Julio to share his stuff with our staff until after we see what PFM has, since we're paying PFM, because there's nothing then to stop our staff from giving it to PFM and saying, hey, can you have this? So let's see what PFM comes up with and see what alternatives they have and how thorough they are, and we'll go from there. But I was extremely impressed with the presentation, with the thoroughness, with his depth of knowledge on the topic. And anyway, if we didn't already have a contract out, I would be suggesting that we talk to them, but we have one out, and so let's see what we get, and if it's not good enough, we'll
What we
move
could,
forward.
what we suggest, what we could do is take the PFM work and then invite Mr. Rodriguez or Martinez in after that to give you a little education as well. So we could certainly handle that.
UFI.
Yeah.
I don't know, but he did follow up, and he sent Bill an email, and he sent, we were both copied on it, saying, you know, you attended my presentation. And so I sent that on to Mike before finance, and Mike hadn't had a chance to see it.
Yeah.
So at this point, when I got your email, Mike, I was like, you know, I'm leaving it alone. I told the gentleman, I emailed him and said, we've already contracted with somebody. I believe it would be unethical for me to ask you to give us anything else to compare, since we're paying somebody else to do the work, and take it from there. But this is not anything that's going to go away, and it's a lot of money that's rolling every day. So we're going to have to really not just jump at the first thing that comes in front of us and get the best. That was
Julio
it.
Morales. Julio Morales.
Julio Morales. So, at 27 years in business, and he worked on Wall Street, he's done some other things. So he's been from private to public. He's been a city manager, and then he was back to the private sector. So he really did kind of get it from all.
Any questions for finance? No. All right, Director Sabo, take it away.
This quick, did I read correctly that in the finance committee minutes, did you actually have a presentation from that same group about environmental?
NHA.
NHA,
No.
Did you actually do that?
Scott and I did.
Oh, you did it
We
separate.
did a presentation with them.
But that didn't go before the finance committee.
No, it did not.
Okay. So, on the question I had related to the financial documents that were in the board packet, there was an indication on the cash flow statement of the FAA CARES Act grant being $898,000 year to date. Last month's statement said it was $3 million year to date. What is the difference between the two figures? This month versus last month?
There are now 3 different grants that we have. We have CARES Act, we have CRISA, and we have ARP or ARP. So you may have some
I'm looking
confusion
at,
there.
I just
related
the
to
cash
it.
flow statement or, sources and uses. And it says at the bottom, there's a line that says, CARES Act expenditures.
Director Sabo,
Yeah,
That's year-to-date fiscal year, right?
correct. That's fiscal year to date. If you look at the CRISA and CARES Act summaries that are at the back of the financial package and should be in your board package, that will show the breakdown by year. But the 898 you're referring to is specifically related to fiscal 22.
So here, Bill, it shows fiscal year-to-date and then it shows for both years. That's this.
okay. I was looking at, I guess what I was referencing, my question was directed at resources and uses of funds in that financial presentation. Comparing that same page from last month to this month, maybe it was just an error or it was a previous fiscal year, but it said $3 million, that same line on the sources and uses of funds for CARES Act year to date. And then this month it was 998 year to date. So, and
We
you
look,
can reconcile that.
again, it's fiscal year. You're looking at 2 different years. And in specifically July, we drew 898,000 from the CARES Act. If you look back to June, that was cumulative for all of fiscal 21. So again, we restart the clock when we look at cash flows each year.
The 3
Now,
was in last fiscal year. The 898 is in this fiscal year. Fiscal
Yes.
year started July 1.
Okay. All right, so we have to go to this page here, right? All this spreadsheet here to determine how much we spent
Bill,
out of the
Can
total,
you speak into your mic? But then-
out of the total of the, out of the CARES package total from day one, we have to go to that.
That's correct.
Is that
correct.
okay? All right. I was a little concerned about the PFM contract or memorandum or agreement, whatever we call it. When we have combined a new agreement with PFM for CalPERS advisory services with the existing contract for their terminal financing work, what's the total cost of all of that work order, agreement, contract, whatever it is? What's the total for that?
They are not combined. They are separate contracts. The board authorized PFM through Kimley Horn to do the analysis of the financial plan at the beginning of the financial plan for the safety enhancement program, contract 1.
Okay.
Contract 2 is the analysis of how we should best deal with our UAL issue.
Okay.
That's a separate contract. That's not to exceed $30,000 and is under my signing authority. I was directed by the board by you specifically, to address how we wanted to address the UAL. That was in May. In July, I notified you that I had engaged PFM, and the reasoning behind engaging PFM was simply so that the two communicated. We have efficiencies because PFM is already aware of our financial position, and it will have, whatever we do with UAL will have an impact on long-term debt strategies associated with the safety enhancement program. But the contracts are totally separate.
Okay. How much is the contract for PFM related to UAL? Because I haven't seen.
Maximum to exceed 30, not to exceed $30,000.
Is it not appropriate to at least bring that forward to the finance committee or board or something for approval?
Director,
Yeah.
Director, can I just, I'd really like to get Scott in on this conversation. Can you give us some clarification here, please, before this gets to the left field?
So typically when contracts like that are signed by the executive director, the custom practice is for him to notify the board through an email, which was done
July 1.
on July 1.
What, that's custom and practice, is that what you said?
Yeah,
That's
So-
his custom and practice,
it is.
okay.
And the reason why that's important is because when if you're buying a box of paper clips or pens, those things are, so small, they're not a big deal. You don't need an email all the time about when he buys pens and paper clips. But a contract that is, to the tune of, $30,000 up to spending authority is important for him to send it to the board. That's why he did that on July 1. There contracts that are for separate scope of work that don't, it's not like taking a construction project and breaking it down into a lot of small parts. That would be inappropriate to have separate contracts for that because it's really one project. These two projects have, while one affects the other, they have no crossover. These are totally separate projects. One is done through Kinley Horn related to the proposed terminal. The other one is related to unfunded actual liabilities. There is some economy of scale in utilizing the same firm, so that because you have it as an airport, you have a maximum amount of bonding capacity that before it will affect your bond rating. So you want to utilize someone who isn't thinking just solely focused on one issue and not thinking about the other one as well. You may decide to not issue bonds for a new terminal. That's totally okay. But you don't want to foreclose that because they didn't think about it. Right. So I think that was the logic. And if I can speak for Mike, I think that was the logic behind utilizing the same company. When you say, is it appropriate to bring it to finance committee? I actually think he went beyond that and brought it to the whole board by email and notified the board of his signing of the contract. So is it appropriate? I think what he did was appropriate.
Well, I guess, the reason that I asked the question before the gentleman asked for this clarification was, I think that the whole business of the UAL obligations that we have are rather substantial. I mean, they are very serious for us, as they are for an awful lot of jurisdictions around the state, if not all of them. And I think it was a topic that when I brought it up that last spring and all that, I was concerned about it then, and I remain concerned about it now. And I think getting the best advisory firm is important. I really object as a board member that we didn't get to weigh in on this. At least the finance committee didn't get a chance to weigh in on it. An email message that I've already done it. I've already engaged them because they have familiarity with our finances out there. I find that extraordinary, and I don't agree with that. And I think it should have been brought to the finance committee and then on to the board for some explanation and review of credentials on the whole thing, because it's substantial. And as far as the correlation between the two, I didn't quite see it. I understand that at some point somebody has to make decisions. If we issue bonds for UAL, or we issue bonds for the terminal, they have to be coordinated. That's obvious, but I don't think that we need to pre-think all that and exclude the board from at least asking a question: why don't we use another firm that has better credentials? I don't know what the credentials of PFM are in the UAL business, but now we're engaged and now we're paying them, and if we have presentations by other people, we'll have to pay them too. So I just think that it was inappropriate to, in this particular case, to go ahead and exercise whatever that spending authority is. And I'm upset that we didn't get a chance with our committees or our board to weigh in on it and discuss qualifications for something I consider very extreme. And that's It's done and we can't be undone, but I encourage us to listen to other opinions from other experts in this field, as Director Rumble has suggested. I'm done.
So just one final comment from the chair. I believe that our council has made it very clear that this was not inappropriate. For the record.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
All right,
I consider it inappropriate. I am a board member. I consider it inappropriate.
so
I
no,
did ask for a legal.
let's move on to air service. Director Sabo.
Yeah. You want to do it, Gary?
Nope.
I think we've covered the marketing plan rather in depth. We talked about the noise comments at the committee meeting. And I observed that the air carriers, for the most part, are doing a pretty good job of avoiding all of our residential neighborhoods west of the airport, except Alaska / SkyWest and Allegiant. Their typical approach to the airport when approaching east to west is to fly right over our residential neighborhoods, specifically Laguna Seca area and also Pasadena, right over using the GPS approach. And apparently, on those occasions, the tower is saying, use the GPS approach, the visual approach, or follow the localizer, the 285. They're doing neither of those, and they're flying over the neighborhoods. And it's creating a lot of concern. Obviously, during the concourse, there was a lot of concern in that regard, compounded by the fact that all of the business jets that I can see are coming in using the GPS approach over the residential neighborhoods west of the airport. I brought that up to the committee and I said, it got really severe during Car Week. It's understandable, but it doesn't seem that we're getting much help from the tower or NorCal in ameliorating the situation. And I suggested that we really needed a telephone conversation with NorCal and Tower, and the executive director disagreed and said that he thinks that the FAA is going to redesign the approaches to the visual approach over the racetrack to be a GPS approach, which his guesstimate was sometime a year away. I think we still need, as one member of that committee, I still think we need to have a serious conversation with NorCal and the tower to alleviate those concerns, because for particularly the business jets going over the neighborhoods west of the airport. We also asked the executive director to provide advanced schedules of the airlines like we received in the board packet. He said he would try to do that, and also to provide to the Air Services Committee the delay and cancellation reports to the Air Services Committee. He said he would try to do that. He was very concerned about the the delay factor we had with United. 58% of their flights were delayed. We don't know whether they were inbound or outbound, but I got complaints from 3 different people that fly that Denver route and they missed their connections because of it. So I think we necessarily can't control what the airlines do or how they operate their airline, but we can certainly be aware of high degree of delays and equipment problem, lobby them to maybe improve their performance. We talked about car rental companies and about I did the survey myself, about half the car rental staying open now after 5 or 6 o'clock at night, so we come in on a late flight, you can at least get a rental car if you book it ahead of time. And so that's pretty much it.
Yes, I have to go back to the question of, I believe you said something to the effect of that the executive director was guessing that there would be another option available or being looked into. That is not correct. The executive director has had discussions about this alternate method. It wasn't a guess, and I would appreciate it, executive director, if you go into that with a little more accurate detail.
Sure. I reported to the committee that I had a meeting with the tower manager in Monterey to talk about issues related to noise, both over Pasadena and to the north of the airport with early turns. I also indicated that we had had conversations with NorCal, and NorCal has offered to take up the mantle on converting the visual approach, the charted visual approach, to an RNAV approach that would be much more useful to business aircraft, which is a concern that Director Sabo has articulated several times. And he agreed that by doing so, the business aircraft community would find that approach much more usable. So there is forward movement. There was no disagreement from myself with anything related to what I just articulated. And that was inaccurate in the director's statement.
And I believe that we were pretty much all in agreement that was a good thing.
That's correct.
And looking forward to following up on it.
That's correct.
All right, any questions for yourself?
Well, not a question, just a couple comments. I always like reading the noise reports and getting very accurate. Who's ever typing these out? I like this one. A legion again, obscenely low, obscenely loud. Here's one: loud, choking, ear-piercing, heart-stopping noise. So my hat's off to people because it really gives us a feeling here on the board of what you're dealing with. But that being said, the numbers are still lower than they were last year. And when you consider last year was a pandemic year with very few flights, I mean, I'm just amazed by that. More on the Pacific Road side, I guess we had an ILS that they had to start using.
Yeah, if you recall, over the last month, we've had a lot of instances with marine layer fog in the morning. And the best approach for that on this airport is the ILS. It's the most accurate with the lowest minimums.
Yeah. Has been so for 60 some years, I
Yep.
think, or 80 years. A few of the addresses they got wrong. I know people who live in Monterey have been identified in Pacific Grove, so that always gets my attention to see that we don't get that many complaints from people in Pacific Grove. Like Howard Falls, close. And the other thing, just a tip of the hat to our employments. I mean, and I would circle it too. Somebody circled it for me, but 20,920. When you consider our banner year of 1922, 109, we're 1,200 away from eclipsing that. So good work.
We're having a very good September too.
Okay, one last thing. I have gotten a few complaints about the Portland flight for cancellation. It doesn't appear in here to back up. I mean, we've got more cancellations from Denver, it looked like. And Allegiant, they said, was every day was violating their
know if we pass it here, they complain about them. They said we're flying every day. Well, but I think we only have a couple flights a day.
Yeah.
I mean, a couple flights a week. But yeah, why are the Denver flights? Why do we have so many cancellations there? Was it weather related or?
It is. The aircraft that United uses,
140, I believe, or
no, it's now back to the CRJ 200,
no?
is not capable of shooting an RNAV approach. And when the weather is such that we have to use the RNAV approach, and they're just not capable of shooting that. So their alternative, if you're landing east to west, is the back course approach, and the back course approach has very high minimums.
Is the weather on our side or Denver's side?
Our side.
Our side.
There is some of that belongs to Denver as well. They've had some interesting weather in the last few months with the monsoon season coming north in Colorado, which is typical.
Okay, well, thank you, and thanks to the Air Service for your hard work.
Director Sarah.
A question and a compliment. The police report had 45 door and gate alarms. It seems quite high. Everybody want to get around for
We have to
parking?
keep them busy, get our money's worth. No, sometimes when a door alarm goes off, it's a false alarm. Sometimes it is someone didn't clear the door as quickly as they should have because there is a time limit on it. It's not necessarily indicative of a security issue. It's more indicative of an operation issue.
Okay, just seemed like a high number,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Wasn't, I know we had high traffic too overall, so. And then I just wanted to, the fire report, discuss the vaccine clinics that they posted in 72nd clinic, administering over 5,000 doses in the community. Certainly the airport's been part of that. I know that we did things right away for our employees and, you know, that have been open to others. And just wanted to highlight that for the community.
Thank you, Director. Director Leffel, anything on Air Service?
Just as, it's kind of a question based off of Carl's comments. I think it might be appropriate for us to write a letter to Scott Kirby, who yesterday went on and on about how they're fixing customer service, and say that it is really ruining their image here on the peninsula by using an aircraft that is whatever it is. I have no idea what kind of plane it is.
It's old.
But that it's old and that it's not able to work with our community, and that they might want to consider, just while they're trying to uplift their customer service numbers, that they fly an appropriate plane here. Because it's like anything, when we get Allegiant and then they're always late, they're delayed and whatever, it reflects on us, it reflects on them, but it reflects on us. Same thing with Denver, it's the same thing. And United has, I think they're probably still at, they're the #1 mileage airline, right? I mean, there are a lot of people that will not fly American because they are at United miles. So it just might be appropriate with what he was saying yesterday, of what they're doing, and we write a letter saying we want to be your partner. We want to do this, but help us out here. Put a plane that can get in and out of here and can accommodate. And I think their numbers of how many people are flying it are high.
Yeah.
So it seems like we could support a larger plane or a better plane. Is that correct?
No, you're spot on. We've had some of those discussions, not at Mr. Kirby's level, but at the director of planning. He and I had conversations about that since they started Denver service, and we continually have those every time we talk. Just can't seem to get them to move over to 175, which would fix most of those problems.
Well, he said they are going to start texting to everybody on planes what the delay is and who it's caused by, because they've had a culture of the blame game, like the catering truck was late, or you can't find a pilot, or whatever. And he said that,
You check the bar.
but he said passengers need to know why they're delayed, and so they're gonna start texting and saying. So I don't think that we as an airport board would like that it's constantly Monterey
Right.
has fog or Monterey has inclement weather, when we know other planes can get in. It
Yeah.
really is their equipment.
Yeah.
Is what I'm hearing from you.
Yep.
As opposed to it's our weather. And if others can get in here, they should be. able to.
Great.
So I mean, it's his reputation too, that he will lose people. I tell people, stop complaining about it and come to Dallas or Katy. I don't, I just don't want to hear it. So anyway, I would recommend that you do that. Maybe it's with the chair's signature, or maybe it's yours, but I would like to see it. And if you win, or if everybody agrees, if you do it, when you do it, would you just copy us on it?
Are you directing?
I'm just, I'm,
I think it's a great, we don't need a motion.
no, I think it's just a word in
Yeah,
agreement.
that's, any objection? Okay,
Let's do it.
thank you.
Okay.
Carl, leases.
You know, I just,
Oh, leases. I got some leases. I'm sorry.
maybe those own leases.
Lease committee, lease
Like I said, we spent a lot of time reviewing the contract and proposals with the demolition on the north side. We talked about a few issues that not appropriate to bring up this time just because there's still ongoing negotiations. I'm trying to, I could not find our minutes in the packet.
They are not there because the time of the meeting we didn't get them done in time to go. So what we talked about in addition was J&J Auto Body and
Oh,
the
yes.
closure of
Yeah.
that business. And
And you did share in a memo that we do have some contamination.
we don't know that, but we're doing the evaluation. We're having the analysis done to determine whether there is any before they leave and close the business. We want to make sure that when we get the property back, it's as clean as it can be.
Because we have a timeline in order to access any insurance coverage they may have.
Well, it's I think legal counsel can opine on the enduring nature of insurance coverage as it relates to environmental concerns, but I think it's better if you get it in there early, because quite frankly, it may be that at some point I come to you and say it's time to demolish that building and start looking at the redevelopment of that area. But I think it would be inappropriate for us to not do an examination.
I agree.
From an
And
environmental
the committee agreed with
Yeah.
too.
And
We
we
had
did the-
assessment. But we did get a memo from you. Was that a different company that,
There are two. We talked about J&J and we also talked about Mid-Cal. Mid-Cal has moved their business off airport property and was clandestinely subleasing their building to a recycling. We now know that. We've now begun the process of terminating that lease.
okay, well, I'm happy to answer any questions. But that's lease committee in a nutshell.
Are we terminating on these leases that we're terminating? Are we replacing? Are we putting people in?
We don't have anyone yet. No.
Is it our intention to do that?
We're going to evaluate the buildings. And it may be that I come to you and ask to demolish those buildings and free the area up for new development. We don't know what the condition of the building is. They're both pretty ancient buildings.
Okay, anything else for lease?
What was that second building that was?
J&J Auto Body and Mid-Cal. Mid-Cal.
Mid-Cal. They are in the same area right there. And this is, we haven't been in those, but we don't know the status of those buildings.
We do fire inspections but we don't know the condition of the building, nor do we know the environmental impacts of either building or either business. So we want to go in and evaluate the condition of the building itself, not just its compliance with fire codes, the condition of the building itself. We want to evaluate what, if any, environmental concerns there are related to the businesses that are exiting.
It is not our common practice then as a landlord to do an annual visit. walk through with the
We
place.
have the ability to do that. We do not, we do that under the context of a fire inspection. But we
Those
do not.
those will become more common once the business license
Yeah.
is put in place. Because there's a cost recovery mechanism built into the business license for that.
So the walkthroughs that are being done right now, they're being done by fire personnel, is that?
Fire personnel and
or
operations.
staff?
Fire personnel and operations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, ad hoc committees.
No meetings.
Mary Ann, do you want to do that one?
I will do LAFCO. We canceled the meeting last month, and we will have a meeting this month. The third-party review of the CalAm evaluation of their business and the water management district evaluation of that business. The third-party review is due this week, so we don't have it as a commission. We don't have it yet, but we will have it, I am told, at the end of the month for this meeting. So that's it. The total dollar amounts, the impact to some of the districts, the loss of tax revenue is huge. I think MPUSD is about almost $7 million. So it's going to be interesting to see how the mitigation is for the districts. Ours is, I think, $147.36.
I don't want to give it up.
So just so you know, but some of the other districts, and I represent all the districts on LAFCO, some of the other districts is significant. Many of them are over $2 million. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But we'll see what happens with the party.
What does CalAm pay in taxes?
I can't remember off the top of my head. I'll bring it back as soon as I have all of that.
It's like 80 million over 20 years.
Regional Taxi Authority does not move until July. Until January.
Director Sabo, Nancy?
They did meet last month, and there wasn't a whole lot of business stuff. In fact, they did present the results of work from home, telework surveys that they did in the region. It may be of interest to the board here. 76% of the employers have adopted a telework policy. They have a written policy. 81% of employers plan to continue to support telework, while 17% are undecided. And almost half of the respondents to the survey, 42%, prefer that employees telework no more than 3 days per week. And then the top issues for the employers and the employees faced with teleworking are technical issues, video conference fatigue, and inadequate access to Wi-Fi and broadband. So that may be fun information to have. And
Bill, was that local or what?
it was a region.
A region?
They didn't define what the region was. It's just, they just called it a region. But generally, I think they use the same kind of regional thinking or definitions that MPAD uses for your set groups.
That's
San
right.
Benito and then they reported on the board authorized Measure X funding, that was the additional money.
Bill, can you get closer to your mic, please? I'm sorry, you have your paper in front of your mic.
Yeah, sorry. The board authorized Measure X funding for that whole area up around Casperville. Funding agreement between the county of Monterey and MC for the preliminary engineering phase of the Blackie Road extension project. I don't even know what Blackie Road is, but
Casterville.
Carl, you probably know what Blackie. It is in Casperville.
It's just to the south of Casterville.
Okay, in any event, they're doing that engineering work on that and spending money, and this all has to do with Highway 156 West Corridor improvements. And then there is also another cooperative agreement that they approved, and that was with Caltrains for $300,000 of federal demonstration funds to complete the right-of-way process for Highway 156 at the Castro Boulevard Exchange Project. So that seems to be getting a lot of attention lately. And that was about it. The executive director, Debbie Dale, is retiring, as I have previously reported. There's a little going away reception for $40. It's on the Tennessee website.
Okay, thank you. Special districts?
You know, I'm gonna refer to Marion Level, he's the president now, and he has a much better handle on
Nice dodge.
I think 4 of us attended the conference and found it very worthwhile. And as always, when you go to a conference and they put 3 or 4 things at 11 to 12, those are the 3 or 4 things you really wanted to see. And then the one that's at 1 to 2, you're kind of ambivalent on. So I think we did a pretty good job of splitting up and attending different things, but I found it very, very valuable. And the UAL presentations that I attended to, and the social media, and it was actually that gentleman, and I'm going to give his information to you, but he was on crisis communication, and he was excellent. Interestingly enough, the breakfast speaker on Wednesday was hysterical. I think Lisa said she had never laughed that hard before 10 in the morning ever. But what he said was that he flew into Oakland because he did not know that Monterey had an airport, and he flew in from Vegas. So he flew into Oakland, and then you're gonna laugh. He said he never ever could believe that it was like this. So he came down Highway 17 to get to Monterey from Oakland because it looked like it was just like an easy drive. And he said he was white knuckled and, perspiring the whole way. It was like an amusement ride to get from Oakland to Monterey. So we have a convert. He will fly into Monterey if he ever comes back. And but he was really good also. So I think it was very successful. They had over 700 people attending. And what I heard from people was, thank God we're in Monterey, the quality of air was wonderful. It was 65 to 70 degrees and people really, really loved it. So that, and I had asked, there is a piece of legislation that will go before the governor. It looks like in the next week. And I know that Mike had sent an endorsement letter. I sent one for all the districts, but it's on the natural institutionalization of having this type of a meeting where we've got Zoom or some other avenue to communicate, to have the public be able to get in and not have to show up in person. Because the law, the emergency law that was passed, would end on September 30th. So this makes it so that you don't have to go back to the legislature and you don't have to vote on it again. It's just that when it is appropriate, you do it, and when it's not, you can stop. So anyway, thank you, Mike, for signing on behalf of us. I think it's important And the other thing is that the excess land law that did involve the districts, CSDA fought hard, and so the districts are now out of that. We're probably not, because we have FFA funding, so we're in a little bit different point. But the way the excess land was that if a school district or somebody had excess land, they had to offer to homeless shelters and some other things first. And now it becomes much more appropriate that districts can do something that makes sense for them. That was my.
Thank you.
What about Special District Association? What's their next meeting? Is that
It is the third Tuesday in October.
Okay, October.
And it will be a Bayonet Black Horse and in person. And I believe that we will have Senator Laird.
Thank you.
Mike, anything on your big? We met last Wednesday, a week ago. Principally, it was a perfunctory meeting. We did receive an update presentation on the RENA effort, which is the Regional Housing Needs Analysis. That's a year-long effort that will be fronted by MPAD. So we're in month 3, I believe, of the effort. So there's a few months to go before the final report comes out. But that data will be used in aggregate for the region, and then each individual jurisdiction will use that data as they develop their plan for how to address the regional housing needs. So,
Did they tell you where they're getting the water?
water was not a discussion in that
Interesting.
presentation. It's only the it's a state requirement to analyze the housing needs for the region. It's a 10-year, every 10 years you do this. Some districts who have a more pronounced problem, or some regions who have a more pronounced problem, do it every 5 years.
Okay, any questions for Mike? Seeing none, we're going to adjourn open session, and we are going to convene closed session, but we really need to get motions on.
They're right there.
Welcome back. We will now reconvene open session. Council, what do we have coming out of closed session?
For a report out of closed session, there was no reportable action taken in closed session.
Very good. So that will allow us to return to item 3 under G on our agenda. And that is resolution number 1806. Executive Director, would you tee that up?
This is a resolution ratifying the labor contract for the next 3 years. It is
1806.
Thank you, 1806. Resolution 1806.
All right, given, I have nothing else to say, and I would move that we adopt this.
So before you make your motion, Director Miller had a comment.
Oh, no, I just wanted to thank the staff and our employees for coming together and having a timely negotiations and reaching a quick settlement. So that's really all I wanted to say. And I, Mr. Chair, I would like to yield any remaining time I have to Director Sable.
So
deal with the finger.
So do we have any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll take it back to the board a final time, and we'll start with Director Sani. Director Miller, you've already commented. Director Leffel.
No, I just say thank you to Mr. Lupier and Dave.
And Director Sabo.
I also wanted to build on the comments of Director Miller and others and thank our staff for what I think is an agreement between the airport district and our staff that works well for all of us. And the extent to which we value the contributions of our staff during the time of the pandemic, I think that $2,000 upfront incentive was our way of saying thank you for that. So that's a statement that one board member makes, and I provide the remaining board members.
Thank you. With that, I'd ask for a motion to approve resolution 1806.
Second.
Discussion? Amanda, roll call vote?
Director Sonny,
Yes.
Director Level,
Yes.
Director Sabo,
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Chair Garcia.
Yes. Thank you. So we go to item K, pending request, executive director, anything there?
None from staff. You will have, as I reported out earlier, you will have the PFM UAL analysis at the October meeting. Beyond that, it's the pleasure of the board if there's something else that you would like to add.
Okay. Anything? Very good. Any discussion on future agendas? Seeing none, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
Have a good night.